3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor, 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to another week and a Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 375, the free Odyssey app, and as always, streaming on YouTube. 888-710-4ISN is the number to jump on in. That's 888-710-4476. You could always get at me on the good old cesspool of Twitter or on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. I got Moist Mike here with me today. I also got Nico, Kudavidas, Scarlatos, Iamaliava on the other side of the glass. How's UCLA? I guess we'll have to wait and see, as Nico is in for Stu, who I'm starting to get concerned a little bit about Stu, if I'm being honest. So last week he went out with Bill Ryder on Thursday, blew off Friday's show because he had too many drinks with Bill Ryder. And yesterday was Stu's favorite holiday, and now he's not in at work once again. So Stu is a party animal. So we appreciate Nico tuning on in and helping us out today on the radio program. Chris Trapasso from CBS Sports NFL Draft Analyst. He's going to join us coming up at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Jason Avant will do a little prospect profile with some of the Michigan players. He's going to stop by 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific Time today. We'll squeeze in a ton of NBA coming off the game ones. But I got to start with the NFL draft because we are 3 days away from first round coverage getting underway at legendary, in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And we're excited to see what the heck is going to happen with this NFL draft. I'm going to start with Shedeur Sanders. And I know some people may be sitting here and saying, Zach, another Shedeur Sanders segment? How many of these are we going to do? But there's been such a wide range of opinions and so many differentiating opinions when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. And there was a time I legitimately thought he was going to be the second overall pick in this draft to the Cleveland Browns. Then I thought, okay, the Giants could snag him at 3. Oh, are the Raiders really going to pass on him if he falls at 6? And then, even 2 weeks ago, oh, well, if he falls to 9, doesn't Kellen Moore have to take him? And I haven't wavered in terms of this. I fully believe Shedeur Sanders should be a top 5 pick. I'm going to sit here today, though, on the 21st day of April in the year of 2025, and this is not a hot take. This is just the way that I feel as we are 3 days out from the first round of the draft. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is going in the top 5. I don't think he's going in the top 10. And there is a real chance that he may not even go in the first 20 picks of this draft. I think at the top, Cam Ward, Tennessee Titans, going to be the first overall pick. Travis Hunter at 2 with Cleveland. I think those two are as close of locks as you could get this time of the year. I would be pleasantly surprised if the New York Football Giants do not take Abdul Carter at 3. Then the Patriots are at 4. They probably go Will Campbell. Then at 5, maybe the Jaguars could do something funky, but it won't be quarterback. Right now, I would still pencil in Mason Graham. But there's been some talk on Ted McMillan. There's also been some talk on Ashton Genty. Assuming Ashton Genty is still on the board, I do believe the Raiders are taking him at 6. Then at 7, could you see a little Armin Membu? Could you see if Will Campbell doesn't go forward to the Patriots, maybe that be the pick by the Jets? Yes, I think they should go with Tyler Warren. 8, I'll take Jalen Walker going to the Carolina Panthers. 9, I could see the Saints taking a lineman. I could see the Saints taking a cornerback and Will Johnson. I could see the Saints taking a pass rusher. Or I could see the Saints maybe trading down. And if Ted McMillan is still on the board, a team like the Cowboys coming on up and going and get him with the 9th overall selection in the draft. And then 10, the Bears would like Tyler Warren. They would like Ashton Genty. I don't believe either will be available. So then you could get an offensive line or pass rusher conversation as well with the Chicago Bears. But if 2, 3, 6, and 9 go the way that I anticipate them to, where the Browns pass on Shedeur, the Giants pass on Shedeur, the Raiders pass on Shedeur, and then the Saints pass on Shedeur, that's going to be the story of the draft. Because there is not a team from 10 through 20 in those selections that need a quarterback. So here is what could transpire. The Giants have been the team that has had the most conversations with Shedeur Sanders. They have the 2nd overall pick in the 2nd round, which gets underway on Friday. Could the Giants, if they see Shedeur fall and he's still there at 18, 19, 20 with the Steelers picking at 21, could the Giants get back up in the first round and get Shedeur Sanders? They can. And if Joe Schoen does that, last year everyone crushed Joe Schoen, and deservedly so. If you walk away with Abdul Carter and Shedeur Sanders, I will salute Joe Schoen. Maybe the Cleveland Browns could also do that, where the Browns maybe look at it and the Browns say, okay, we got Travis Hunter. Let's use our early pick in the 2nd round to move back up and get to that 18, 19, 20 range to get Shedeur Sanders. Once again, if Andrew Berry can do that, I'll salute Andrew Berry. Could the possibility of the Las Vegas Raiders, who have Geno Smith and they just gave him that extension, well, the Raiders had the 5th pick in the 2nd round, could they move back up And once again, if John Spytek finds a way to get Ashton Genty and Shedeur Sanders, I'll salute John Spytek. And then if the Saints, whoever they take at 9, and I'm not really in the business of saluting Mickey Loomis because I don't think he should be running the Saints anymore, but if he could find a way to move up from 40, which is the 8th pick in the second round, and get back in at, I don't know, 18, 19, or 20, and he could get a player at 9, or maybe trade back a little bit, and you get somebody else, and you could pick up more draft capital as the Saints are rebuilding, and you could get a player with your true first selection, and then you get another one, and you get Shedeur Sanders, I'll salute Mickey Loomis. So those are all possibilities. And I will sit here and tell you this. If you ask me today, the team to monitor about potentially moving back up in the first round, if let's say the Browns, the Giants, the Saints, and the Raiders all pass on Shedeur Sanders, I think the team most likely to do it are the New York Giants. I don't think there's a need by the Raiders right now and I feel like a rush to take a quarterback this year with one of their first round picks. I know they don't have 2, but the way we're talking about this is you would end up getting 2 first round picks this year. I don't think there's a great desire by the Browns to go get Shedeur Sanders because right now where we currently sit, it seems like, okay, they're fine with Joe Flacco for a year. They don't have a long-term plan. Could the Kirk Cousins storyline maybe potentially pop back up? We'll have to wait and see. I think that there should be a need by the Saints, but remember, Mickey Loomis has been there forever, and Kellen Moore is in his first year. Brian Daboll and also Joe Schoen, they're treading water. And it looks like both of them are about to drown, if we're just being honest. And if you get Abdul Carter at 3, okay, good selection. I think he's the best player in the draft. No one is going to praise you for that selection in terms of keeping your job at the end of the year if you only find a way to muster up 5, 6, or 7 wins. Okay? Now, with that being said, if you could go get Abdul Carter and Shedeur Sanders, then maybe, right, you get praise for Abdul Carter and then Shedeur after Russell Wilson plays, 8 or 9 games? Maybe he has a strong end to the season, or he just plays well in the final 3 weeks of the season, and even if you only have 6 or 7 wins, okay, you're building something. We can now see some foundational pieces that aren't just a Dexter Lawrence and a Malik Neighbors, right? So that's why I think there is going to be a rush out of anybody that passes on Shedeur to then go get Shedeur before their true second-round pick and their true second pick does become available. It would be the Giants. And the Giants have spent the most time with them. And I put a lot of stock for about 24 hours in the fact that the Giants last week on Thursday met with Shedeur Sanders. There's also other reported coming out last year that they had meetings close to the draft with other draft prospects that they passed on last year at the quarterback position. So I don't know what to make of it. And also, we have not had any kind of report or anything of great significance come out, which was a leak from that meeting with the Giants brass in Colorado on last Thursday, with Shedeur Sanders. So as I sit here today, and I'm going to give you what I think is my final Shedeur Sanders prediction. And I'll admit it, I thought it was originally going to go to the Giants at 3, then the Browns at 2. You know, we talked about the Raiders at 6. We've even, for a little bit, pondered about the Saints potentially going 9. If you would have told me a month ago, if you would have called me up at 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476, and you said, hey, Zach, Shedeur Sanders is going to fall to 21 to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I probably would have yelled at you. I probably would have shouted at you. And I probably would have said you're delusional and there's no chance that he's fallen all the way to 21. For a guy that I legitimately thought when the season ended was clearly going to be a top 5 pick. Not only now do I have him falling out of the top 5, I have him falling out of the top 10. And unless the Giants come back up and trade for him, I think he's going to fall out of the top 20, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to get him at 21. And if I'm Shedeur, draft night may be tough for you. Now, you won't be in the green room. We know that. You're not going to Green Bay, Wisconsin. But you will become the story of the draft. And in a weird way, people will take joy, which is so stupid, and I like Shedeur, about the fact that you're falling and that you're getting humiliated. but it may end up being the best thing to happen to you. Because if you go to the Giants right now, I know they have Malik Neighbors, but they're not a good organization. You go to the Cleveland Browns, what do the Browns really have to offer? Jerry Jeudy? A solid wide receiver. If you go to the Raiders, yeah, you got Brock Bowers. Yeah, maybe you got Ashton Genty if they do that at 6. But the Raiders, it seems like they bring in a new head coach every 3 years. 3 years actually may be a little bit generous. And the Saints, Kellen Moore did a nice job in Philadelphia. There's no doubt about it. But I don't know what direction the New Orleans Saints are heading in. So if you look at those 5 teams, and I could say to Shedeur Sanders, you get a choice of the Browns, the Giants, the Raiders, the Saints, and the Steelers. If it didn't matter where you were getting selected, just based off the talent, where would you want to play most? Wouldn't it be Pittsburgh? You get to play for Mike Tomlin. Arthur Smith, he wasn't a good head coach in Atlanta, but he's a good offensive coordinator. And you have 2 wide receivers. I don't know if George Pickens is going to be on the team when the season starts, but right now you have George Pickens and you also got DK Metcalf. And you're in an organization that they roll out of bed each and every year, bare minimum get 9-10 wins. And even though they haven't won a playoff game since the 2016 season, they are always a team that's above 500, and they're in the mix to be playing on Wild Card Weekend. And in some years, they do win the AFC North. So I understand that could be the negative story of the draft. That could be the ugly story of the draft. And Shedeur Sanders, it could be a long night for him on Thursday. But if it ends at 21 with him going to the Saints, or with him going to the Steelers, I don't think that's a bad thing for Shedeur Sanders whatsoever. I do ultimately think 3 quarterbacks go in the first round. And right now, I do believe it's going to be Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and I'm going to hitch my wagon to Jalen Milroe. I do not like really any of these quarterbacks going in the first round in terms of my personal preference, unless if their name is Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. But out of all the other quarterbacks, not named Ward, not named Sanders, I do think Jalen Milroe has the highest ceiling, but the floor is really ugly for Jalen Milroe as well. But if let's just say we only see 2 quarterbacks go in the first round, and I think it will end up being 3, and someone will trade in towards the back end of the first round. But if we only get 2, where it's just Cam Ward and it's just Shedeur Sanders, think about how fun the start of the second round could be on Friday night, where you could have a flurry of quarterbacks go. Because the first 10 picks in the second round, Browns would need a quarterback then, Giants would need a quarterback then, Tennessee would not, Jacksonville would not, Raiders could potentially need one then, the Patriots wouldn't, the Browns wouldn't, the Bears wouldn't, the Saints could, and definitely could. The Bears, once again, not so much, and the Jets, not so much. But think about the flurry of quarterbacks that could go to start the second round if we only see 2 go in the first round. Cleveland at 33, Giants at 34, Raiders at 37, and then the Saints at 40. And that could make a lot of fun wheeling and dealing to go get, I don't know, a Jalen Milroe, a Jackson Dart, a Tyler Shuck, whoever these quarterbacks may be that people think are fringe maybe going in the first round, or if not, then they'll get scooped up with the second round selections when that gets underway on Friday. So I'm starting to think that Shedeur is falling, and it's funny because it's the 21st day of April. I just realized that right now. I think that Shedeur is falling to 21. I do believe right now, my anticipation, my gut feeling tells me Shedeur is going to fall, and he's going to be the 21st selection with the Steelers, and it's not a bad thing for Shedeur Sanders. It may stink in the moment, but you're going to a damn good organization, and you're going to a spot that has some pieces with a good defense that I think will bounce back this year. You got 2 wide receivers, and you got a good football coach in Mike Tomlin and a smart offensive mind in Arthur Smith. 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476. We start things off with Kevin in San Antonio, first up on the Zach Gelb Show. Kevin, what's happening, my man?
Not much, Zach. I'm with all this stuff that's going on with Shedeur, it's like picking a lottery ball, and he's gonna go there and go to this team and that. When I was thinking that he should go to the Saints because they need to reestablish the winning philosophy. Now for the Steelers, you are right, Zach. They got a foundation. All they got to do is go there and just learn. He got the skills.
He does. He's got the skills and he's got the background. The other thing, Kevin, is I just don't know how much of a rush and how much of a desire there is in what is considered a weaker quarterback draft class for a team like the Saints with a brand new football coach who's an offensive-minded coach. And you can get multiple opportunities to draft a quarterback in the draft, but you always have to assume you're only going to get one, especially with how quickly we throw coaches away in this league. And my feel right now is the Saints are going to build elsewhere, and they'll wait a year to select their quarterback of the future. If you're picking a quarterback in the first round of the top 10, you ideally think that's your quarterback of the future. If you wait later on in the first round, it's not necessarily the quarterback of the future. And if you wait until the second round, it's not necessarily your quarterback of the future. And there could be some teams this year that take a flyer on a guy in the second round, have him in their building for a year, maybe see them play at the end of the year, and then next year's quarterback class, maybe it ends up being loaded. And then maybe that team's picking in the top 5, and you're going and taking a quarterback a year from now again. That's definitely something on the table. Let's go to Chris in California next up on the Zach Gelb Show. Chris, what's happening, my man? How you been?
Good. How you been, man?
Doing great. What do you got?
So I just want to make it known and mark these words today that if the Cleveland Browns select Travis Hunter, that would be the biggest mistake they make.
Why?
Because there's just too many red flags with Travis Hunter. I feel like coming from, don't get me wrong, Deion Sanders is one of the greatest players of all time, but he has this high ego, and he is coming from Deion Sanders' coaching tree. Like, I don't think that's just one red flag to me. Travis Hunter.
What's the red flag? I don't understand.
It's all about me, and it's not about the team. He's a me guy. He's not a team guy. And then when it comes down to him,
do you have anything factual on that, Chris? Because I'm going to be honest. I've covered the Heisman Trophy for now over 10 years. Travis Hunter may have been one of the most genuine stars I've ever interviewed at the Heisman Trophy, and he was extremely respectful, and he gave a lot of credit to his teammates. I don't know if he's all about me. I don't think that's a fair assessment.
Okay, then hear me out on this. That's just my analysis on one red flag, and then there's another one. He's going to play both ways. So he already said, I want to play both ways.
Yeah.
And with him wanting to play both ways, you're not going to have to pay him one aspect of playing one side of the ball, wide receiver. You're going to have to pay him double because he's going to be playing DB. So when you go out there and he's going to want a contract negotiation, he's going to ask for a buttload of money, and that's going to take a lot of money from the Browns' cap space for them to do anything.
So what would you then do at the second overall pick?
I would pick Ashton Genty, and to resolve the wide receiver position, you talk to Minnesota and get a trade for Jordan Addison to come to Cleveland. You take care of the 2 pick by getting Ashton Genty. You're taking care of the running back position. Nick Chubb ain't there no more.
Why would the Vikings trade you Addison though?
What's that?
The Vikings are in a win-now mode and bringing in a new young quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. Jordan Addison's entering his 3rd year in the league? Why would they trade you Jordan Addison right now?
I mean, you could give him assets. You can give him a second, the 33rd overall pick. You could get, and they could decide what they want to do with that pick, whether they go wide receiver or not. And then you could probably give them somebody on the roster right now, a 3rd overall pick too. I mean, J.J. McCarthy's he's unproven. I mean, I'm only saying this because Pickett and Jordan Addison have a good combination.
Chris, that's right. It's the Kenny Pickett connection and going back to Pittsburgh when they played together.
If you look at their numbers. When he went to USC, he dropped off with Caleb Williams.
He won the Blitnikoff Award. I know that, but do you think that Kenny Pickett is definitely going to be starting week 1? Because right now I would handicap it that it's going to be Joe Flacco.
I don't understand what you guys, radio personalities, the media, I don't know what they have against Kenny Pickett.
I don't have anything against Kenny Pickett.
I'm just finding it funny that Justin Fields goes to New York Jets. He's taken over a Hall of Fame guy's job, but you don't see anywhere on any sports, whatever. They're not saying that they need a quarterback. And at the New York Jets.
No, people look at the Jets and they said it's an experiment. They're trying with Justin Fields, and it's a 1-year tryout.
I just think it's unfair, dude. Like,
what's
you give
unfair
one
about
quarterback,
it?
or you give somebody.
Hold on, Chris, time out. What's unfair about it? I'm not saying Kenny Pickett can't start eventually in Cleveland, but right now, today, I'm handicapping week 1, and I think it's going to be Joe Flacco getting the starting job in Cleveland.
Pickett was a drop away from Devontae Smith of going 2-0 starting with the Philadelphia Eagles, or taking over the first game when Jalen Hurts got hurt, and then he came in against Dallas. And
okay,
beat Dallas.
but what's unfair? I don't understand what's unfair with Kenny Pickett.
It doesn't matter. Like, he has very little room for error. If he throws an incomplete pass, put in somebody else. Dude, give him a shot, bro. The NFL is not giving this guy a shot. Give him a freaking shot, bro.
All righty. I think you're reading too much on social media, Chris, if I'm just being honest. And you're freaking out. And I don't have anything against Kenny Pickett. Do I think that he's a long-term starting quarterback in this league? No. But I texted, I bet you I'm the only person in the national media. I could guarantee you this. I'm the only person in the national media to have hold on, let me count how many different times we've texted. Three different conversations with Kenny Pickett via text since March. I could guarantee you that. And we're trying to get him on the show because of how much Chris in California calls in and slobbers over Kenny Pickett. But what is unfair, what is ridiculous in the analysis of Kenny Pickett? I think right now, Joe Flacco is going to start in Cleveland. I don't think he's going to keep the job the entirety of the season. Then Kenny Pickett will get an opportunity. And let me tell you, I hope Kenny Pickett, when he gets in, tosses for like 12 touchdowns. I hope he goes like 6-7 touchdowns in a game, and Chris is calling up and he's throwing it back in everybody's face. But Chris is like, he's fighting this battle where he's just yelling at people about this, and no one's really like fighting back. No one's saying anything unfair about Kenny Pickett. But the guy is now on his third NFL team, right? Third. Got drafted by the Steelers. They gave up on him. Then was a backup in Philadelphia, and now he's in Cleveland. And he's getting an opportunity to win the job. I just don't think right now he's going to win the job. I think it's going to be old man Flacco. So, I was waiting for the Kenny Pickett point with Chris, and then I was like, oh, yeah, Addison did play there at Pitt. He won the Biletnikoff, and then he went to USC. So, here we go. All righty, we'll take a break. When we come on back, the Lakers got dominated in Game 1. Did people overlook the Minnesota Timberwolves? We'll give you a few Game 1 reactions from the NBA postseason when we come on back. Zach Gelb Show on the Kenny Pickett Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Brass monkey, that funky monkey. Brass monkey, chunky, that funky monkey.
All right, welcome back into KSN, the Kenny Sports Network, in honor of Kenny Pickett. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Imagine if someone's getting in their car right now. KSN, another name change for this network? But let's get to a little hoops. Chris Trapasso will join us coming up in 30 minutes from now, as we will chat a little NFL draft with him. Jason Avant will join us, talk some draft too, at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. When we look back at all these game ones, let's start with Minnesota just taking it to Los Angeles by a final score of 117-95. There is concern if you're a Lakers fan. I don't think anyone's going to write your obituary, or should they, after one loss. But game two becomes fascinating now for you. Because if you go down 2-0 and you're home, that's alarming. And I said this the other day, and let me preface it by saying, I picked the Lakers. I did. I want to see Lakers and Warriors. That would be appealing to me. The Warriors, they won last night, taking care of business up against the Houston Rockets. That is what I want to see. I want to see Steph. I want to see LeBron. I want to see Draymond. I want to see Luka. I want to see Jimmy Butler. That's what I want to see in the second round. But I did say on Friday, I wonder if, and I mentioned this to Bill Ryder, if people are overlooking the Timberwolves. Because it's all about perception in the NBA. And I will say this too. The NBA regular season is a bad product for the most part. The offseason is really good theater, really good drama. And the NBA postseason, I think a lot of times people listen to me probably, they go, oh, Zach hates the NBA. I don't hate the NBA, to be clear. I despise Adam Silver. That's for sure. But postseason basketball, just watching these game ones, I love it. It's awesome. And it's great when you see people actually caring in the NBA and the games actually mean something. But in that game one, I do think that going into this postseason, especially with the year that they had last year, right? Minnesota got to the conference finals. People thought they were going to beat the Mavericks. They don't. They make the changes in the offseason. You say goodbye to Karl Anthony Towns. Dante DiVincenzo now goes to Minnesota. You get Julius Randle to Minnesota as well. And all throughout the year with the Timberwolves, there's only a one-game difference with the Timberwolves and the Lakers. The Lakers have 50 wins. Minnesota has 49. But Minnesota's been giving you this feel that they haven't had it. They haven't been that team that has come together. They haven't taken that next step. And how many times have we seen teams in the NBA, especially in the last decade plus, where they know what they're playing for when the postseason comes around, and the regular season effort, it doesn't click, or it's a little lethargic, or it doesn't go all out how they expect it to go and they anticipated it going. And with all that being said, there was only a 1-win difference from the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Los Angeles Lakers. And you know Anthony Edwards, he has potential, even though he doesn't want to be it, to be the face of the league. And Anthony Edwards was fine in game 1. But really, I look at Jaden McDaniels, who had 25, and Naz Reid off the bench, who had 23. That's why they won the game. McDaniels going for 25 and Reid going for 23. That's a big reason why they won the game. So the Timberwolves throw a punch. Now the Lakers are shook a little bit. They're a little bit rattled. Can LeBron and Luka, can they answer back with a Game 2 victory? Absolutely. But that size, like, do I anticipate Naz Reid to score 23 points again in Game 2? Probably not. Do I anticipate Jaden McDaniels to have 25 points in Game 2? Probably not. But the size that you got to see for the Timberwolves, that was the biggest difference. The Lakers, we know they're a smaller team, and you look at Minnesota, they're just so much bigger than the Los Angeles Lakers. And how do the Lakers find an answer to that? And that's where this thing gets tricky. And if Minnesota wins this series, you're going to have their confidence, their swagger. I'm not saying they lost it, but in terms of nationally, people are going to look at them and say, okay, they're back. When throughout this season, it wasn't like they were horrible, but you thought they were going to really rise above. You thought they were going to be one of the best teams in the Western Conference. And with the logjam that was in the Western Conference, they ended up being the 6th seed. But it's not as if they had a bad season. It's not as if that they were a team that was flat all throughout the year. It's just almost like they were trying to find their way with the new pieces that they brought in, but there wasn't an urge, there wasn't a need to go all out, and now you're seeing that. It's only one game. I was impressed with Minnesota. I was thoroughly disappointed with the Los Angeles Lakers, and now all eyes go to Game 2, but you know how this works. If the Lakers go on out there and they win Game 2, it's a brand new series. But this is something that's going to be so intriguing to watch because it's not like the Lakers could just get taller all of a sudden. It's not like they could just get bigger. All right? They can't. And that could be what wins, ultimately, Minnesota this series. So that was one of the thoughts from over the weekend, which was a very fun opening round weekend of the NBA playoffs as all the Game 1s are in the books. And then tonight you get the Pistons and the Knicks. How about the Knicks, by the way? In that fourth quarter, Cameron Payne, 11 points in the fourth quarter. You get a 21-0 run. You had 34 points in the game by Jalen Brunson. The Knicks go from probably being the piñata today. That's what they would have been. Everyone would have been slamming the Knicks if they would have lost that game. And then they had a sensational fourth quarter. And Clippers in Denver was also really fun as Denver takes a 1-0 lead. And the emotions of Russell Westbrook, too. How many times you were like, hero 0, hero 0, hero 0, then hero for Russell Westbrook as that game got into overtime. That was absolutely bonkers. I thought Russell Westbrook for a second was playing for the Houston Cougars when he couldn't get a shot off at the end, and then he made that big defensive play at the end in overtime to basically seal up the victory. So Denver fires their coach. They fire their general manager 3 games before the postseason starts, and then boom, they're up 1-0 up against the Los Angeles Clippers, where everyone was telling you before the postseason started, ooh, the Clippers could be that sleeper team. Kawhi's healthy. Oh, you got James Harden playing at a high level, and now Denver's up 1-0 in that series. So you get those 2 Game 2s tonight as New York looks to take a 2-0 lead, and we'll see if the Clippers could tie up that series at 1 apiece up against Denver. We'll take a timeout. When we come on back, we'll update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We'll get to a news brief on the other side. And in the news brief, we do have a fart situation. There was a fart in the sports world over the weekend. We break that down like no other radio show can. When we come on back, how about that for a tease? But standing by with the latest sports flash, here is a man that I do not think is gassy, but he'll give you a big-time update. Here is Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network, Sports Flash.
Not sure how to respond to that. Silence is the best thing. Sponsored by... There you go. Sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Your small business keeps you on the go. Progressive Commercial Insurance keeps your policy within reach with their easy-to-use mobile app. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com. The Hawks made a big change in their front office after going 0 for 2 in the play-in tournament. Landry Fields out as GM, replaced by Anseh Saleh. who was promoted. The team also looking for a new president of basketball operations. A pair of first-round series continue tonight with Game 2 in New York. The Knicks look to make it back-to-back wins over Detroit, which gave New York everything it could handle for three quarters before the Knicks defense and Jalen Brunson took over and won going away. In Denver, the Nuggets host the Clippers after taking the opener in overtime. Three-time MVP Nikola Jokic was 1 assist shy of a triple-double, but Russell Westbrook hit the game-tying three-pointer in regulation and had a big defensive stop in the final seconds of the extra period. At the Boston Marathon today, Sharon Lokedi won the women's division, setting a new record by more than 2 minutes, finishing in 2:17:22. John Career won the men's division, and the Red Sox today, winners over the White Sox 5-2. I'm Rich Ackerman.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show.
It's time to ask the pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at INF Sportsnet or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Be listening later in the show. We might answer your question. You could thank O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs, get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. I just heard audio during the break, and I saw a video of Anthony Edwards having a little back and forth with a Lakers fan who I guess was booing him or saying, like, you suck. He turned to the Lakers fan. He goes, I got $200 million. I got $200 million. I got $200 million, and my Johnson, I'll clean it up because I don't think I could say that on the radio, is bigger than yours. And he used a word that is associated with Johnson that begins with a D and rhymes with ick. Okay? Legendary trash talking. If you're that fan, how do you respond? Now, you must have some money because you got good seats. You're right there, a few rows behind, half court, right at center court. But how do you respond to when a player walks up to you and goes, I got $200 million and my Johnson is bigger than yours? Epic stuff there by Anthony Edwards. All right, let's get you up to date on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. Let's get to a news brief right now.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Let's start off. Tom Pelissero, NFL Network, on Shedeur Sanders and the New York Football Giants.
Shedeur Sanders and the Giants have been linked literally for like a year. The Giants had somebody, a scout or Joe Shane, at every open practice, at every game of Shedeur Sanders. They brought him out to New Jersey for a visit. They went to his showcase. Now they do a private workout. There's no team that's done more work probably on one player in this draft than the Giants on Shedeur Sanders. We know this. It's a really important year for the Giants. It's a really important year for Joe Shane and Brian Dable. They have to get this pick right one way or another.
How great would it be if this was all a smokescreen of Abdul Carter going at 3, and everyone said that Shedeur was falling and he ends up going with the 3rd overall pick? I'd be thrilled if that was the case on Thursday night, but I think Shedeur is going to fall. I think he's going to fall outside of the top 10. And right now, I do anticipate him being the Steelers' pick at 21. But with how much research the Giants have done and how much time they've got to spend with Shedeur, maybe they would find a way to trade back up to get into that 18, 19, 20 range to just jump the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you get the best of both worlds, Abdul Carter at 3, and then you get Shedeur Sanders at, let's say, pick number 19. Here is Tom Pelissero on the Rich Eisen Show right before us on the Infinity Sports Network. We heard Aaron Rodgers just in ridiculous fashion go after Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji. This is Tom Pelissero explaining the Jet side of the Aaron Rodgers meeting.
What I was told at the time was that Aaron had indicated to them, hey, I'm going to be on that side of the country in this week. And they said, great, come into the building. And there had been ongoing dialogue up until that. It was more so he thought, that the door was going to be open.
This whole thing is a waste of time. Rodgers knew he was getting broken up with. The Jets knew they were moving on. If they would have just called him and said, hey, we're breaking up with you, Rodgers would have bitched about that. If they would have brought him in, sat him down for 5 hours, then told him they were moving on, he would have bitched about that. There's no winning here with Aaron Rodgers in this regard. Let's go to Jeremy Fowler, NFL Live on the ESPN, on the possibility of Ashton Jeanty and the Raiders with the 6th overall pick.
Jeanty is in play for the Raiders among a few options. They're also looking at offensive tackle potentially, but there's some momentum around the Raiders and Jeanty. I'm told Jeanty would love to play for the Raiders. They are atop his wish list as far as what the player wants. We'll see what the team wants, but this is an option that clearly will go somewhere in the top 10 to 12. I haven't talked to one team who thinks he would slip out of that range. In fact, Jacksonville at number 5 could be a sleeper option for Jeanty as well.
I would be surprised that the Jaguars take him at 5, but there's always a name, and Jeanty doesn't come out of nowhere, but he's always projected to go to like a few teams, and then right before the draft, a team emerges, and it's like, maybe we should have thought about the Jaguars more, so I guess that's something to monitor. I would be surprised at this rate if Jeanty isn't drafted by the Raiders at 6, but if he does slip past the Raiders at 6, if I'm Chicago, I would even maybe trade up a few spots to get Ben Johnson, Ashton Jeanty, and then you could have Caleb Williams, Ashton Jeanty, and you also used a first-round pick on Roma Dunze last year, and you have DJ Moore with the revamped offensive line. That could be fun in the Windy City. Let's go to the Colts GM, one of the worst GMs in the NFL. That's Chris Ballard on this whole quarterback competition with Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. Remember, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback, and that's where the Colts currently sit.
We'll all get together, and who gives us our best chance to win? I think it'll be a great competition between both of them. I think both of them will be better because of this, and I think the team will be better because of it. You know, competition brings out the best in everybody, and I think we'll see that. You don't want to begin with an end in mind. We're not going to do that. You got to let things play out the way they should and compete, and who gives the team the best chance to win. If I'm a betting man, at some point both of them will help us.
Oh, boy. At some point, both of them will help us. Well, we'll start with one, probably going to be Anthony Richardson because we used the 4th overall pick on him. And then we don't really believe in him, so then we'll go to Daniel Jones, and that's who we're going to hope is going to save this franchise. The Colts are just lost. They have no hope, they have no direction, and they have no future. And Chris Ballard shouldn't have a job. I don't think I can make it more crystal clear than that. Let's go to Chris Sims. Remember, he's very close with Kyle Shanahan. They have matching tattoos. This is Chris Sims on PFT Live going off on Brock Purdy saying he isn't worth top 10 quarterback money.
Nobody looks at Brock Purdy and thinks he's a top 10 quarterback in football. Nobody. Yeah, with Shanahan as his OC and the 49er All-Star team around the last few years, yeah, he can look pretty damn good. He can look top 10-ish. But we just saw last year when the 49er All-Star team fell apart and got injured, 6-11, and we're talking about we're going to pay over $50 million a year, and that's what it seems like. So that's just, I think, the 49ers are in a tough spot in their organization. They do have a quarterback. He is their franchise guy, but I don't think he's worth being paid one of the top 10 quarterbacks in football. And yeah, I would not want to see them pay more than $45 million a year either if I was running the team or had say in it.
I don't think he's wrong in terms of not wanting to do that, but then what will you do? And I do believe Brock Purdy's going to get a contract that starts with a 5 per year. He's going to be in that $50+ million range because they believe in him enough. And you look at the salaries and how ridiculous they are. How many times do we just see a good quarterback get great quarterback money? And that's what's going to happen with Brock Purdy. Here's Lane Kiffin, the head coach at Ole Miss. He was on the Pivot podcast with Ryan Clark and Channing Crowder and Fred Taylor. And he threw some shade at one Carson Beck.
It's crazy, Coach, that you bring up the NFL structure with college now because they're under contract. They're making money. They're making millions of dollars. I think down in Miami, what's Carson Beck?
4.3.
4.3
the evaluation.
Million. I think my biggest year was 6. He's a college kid. So, like, you bring up the comparison of what they're doing. They're really getting NFL money.
Miami gave him $4.3 million? That's what the evaluation says. Hey, did they watch this game against us? You don't have to be great, Coach. Hey, Lane,
I was trying not to go. You set me up.
That's pretty good. You know what my response would have been? Hey, Coach, did you watch Jackson Dart at times last year? You know what rhymes with Dart? Fart. What a transition, by the way. Logan Webb. I guess someone let one rip when he was talking to the media after a start for the San Francisco Giants over the weekend. Here is their ace.
Bumgarner needs to come and Juan Marshall for at least 4 outings with.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. Farts are always funny. I'm not gonna lie. It's anytime you're in a list.
Just sitting there for your media available in the locker mate next to you just lets one rip as all the cameras and all the people are there, and this guy just loses it, and he goes, up, farts are always funny. Let's go to Nico Harrison. I think that's what happened for years with Pete the Body Bellotti and Marash when they worked together in the same control room. Oh, I think there's a lingering smell still in that control room. Let's go to Nico Harrison. Someone asked him today, why shouldn't he be fired? Listen up. Great question.
Luka comes back to town. The Lakers game's happening, and you're standing there, and there's thousands of people chanting for you to be fired. Why shouldn't you be fired?
Well, one, I think I've done a really good job here, and I don't think I can be judged by the injuries this year. You have to judge from totality, from beginning to end, and so I think I have a really good working relationship with Patrick.
Well, that was real encouraging, let me tell you. I shouldn't be judged by the injuries. Okay. So when the team doesn't get back to the NBA Finals next year, then your ass should be fired. Let's get more of Nico Harrison. He was surprised by the fans' reaction and how much they love Luka.
Did the anger and outrage from the fan base, has that exceeded what you were kind of planning for?
Yeah, good question. I did know that Luka was important to the fan base. I didn't quite know it to what level.
Oh my God. I don't want to say Michael Jordan because Luka isn't Michael Jordan. But my oh my. How did you not know how important he was to what? Mark Cuban? I didn't realize how important Dirk Nowitzki was back in the day if he elected to trade him. What are we doing? You traded a superstar, a top 5 player in the league in his prime, and he wanted to stay there. Oh, I knew that they liked him. I didn't know how important he was to the fan base. Oh, my God. I say this every time Nico Harrison speaks. He's better off just not speaking. Just shut your dumb trap, all right? Do not speak. You are not doing yourself any favors. You're fighting a fight right now that you cannot win. The only way you could win is if you have success next year. So zip your lip and stay irrelevant. Because right now you are the dumbest person in the NBA, and every time you speak, you sound dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber. All right? Enough. Stop talking. Hide. Go away, and then pop back up if you actually succeed next year. Coming on back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond. He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Just a quick schedule change. Chris Trapasso is now going to join us 20 minutes from now at 4:20 p.m. Eastern, 1:20 p.m. Pacific time. Jason Avant, he will join us at the top of the hour at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific time. But it's time to see a little questions, get a little questions, we'll get you a little answers. We do the segment every Monday and Friday on the show. It is time for a little onsides, offsides. Nico, hit it.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, Sam, what do we got cooking today?
All right, well, let's start with my team, the Jets, because they're always in the news for the most ridiculous things. And obviously, last week, Aaron Rodgers called out Aaron Glenn. The team decided not to respond to their former quarterback. We heard Tom Pelissero last week say that there was clearly two different sides to the story. Now, instead, the Jets did announce that they were exercising the fifth-year options for their trio of first-round picks from 2022. Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, and Jermaine Johnson. So onside, offside, the Jets have a good enough core of young talent to win with the right quarterback.
I don't think it's perfect, but could they be a playoff team if they find the right quarterback? Yes. The offensive line could still be a question mark, but you got Breece Hall, you got Garrett Wilson, you got enough pieces on defense. I did not think it was a good year for Sauce Gardner, but I think he's more of the player that he's been for most of his career early on than what was a disastrous year number 3. But yeah, they need a quarterback. Tyler Warren, I think, will be their pick at 7, so I'm factoring that into the equation as well. If you end up taking an offensive lineman again, like an Armin Membu, or if Campbell starts to fall, then I'm okay with that. But the Jets have enough there to get a proper evaluation of Justin Fields. I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm not saying it's going to be super duper successful. But Fields, even though it's a 2-year deal, it's really a 1-year evaluation. You go from there. But there is enough there. If you are that talented of a quarterback, you could make it work. Because the Jets, I know they're viewed as a decrepit organization. Their roster isn't decrepit. So the Jets have a good enough core of young talent to win with the right QB onside.
Now, the Seahawks traded Geno Smith this offseason, brought in Sam Darnold to start and Drew Lock to back him up. The moves made former UNC star and 5th-round pick Sam Howell expendable, and now ESPN reports multiple teams have reached out to Seattle to discuss a trade. Onside, offside, Sam Howell will get another shot to start somewhere in the NFL before his career is over.
So when you say a shot to start, it's not just you walk into camp. Like, you're not saying you walk into camp and you get a chance to compete for the starting job, or you're saying that he will be the starting quarterback game 1 of a regular season where the intention is that he starts the entirety of the season?
That he will be, either he'll win a quarterback battle or he will do well enough as a backup that some team will sign him as a starter at some point.
I think the only way that Sam Howell is going to be a team's full-time starter is if someone gets hurt, or if it's a bridge year and maybe they're tanking or something like that. I understand that Sam Howell, when he was at UNC, he lost both of his running backs, he lost wide receivers, and he at one point was talked about to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. That ship has by far and away sailed, and I don't view Sam Howell as this franchise-altering player where he's going to be a team's regular season starter for all 17 games. So Sam Howell will get a shot to start somewhere in the NFL before his career is over. I know with what happened with Sam Darnold and what happened with Geno Smith, this has become a popular thing to talk about. I don't think that's going to be normal where a guy's been down and out for most of his career and then out of nowhere just pops back up and salvages it. So I will go offside there.
Offside.
Now, the Steelers added wideout DK Metcalf this offseason, leaving many to wonder whether they would keep or trade disgruntled receiver George Pickens.
He could be one of the biggest pain in the asses in the NFL, George Pickens. Seriously. He's a solid player. He's good, but this dude, his ego, he thinks he's the greatest wide receiver of all time.
Outside of him and Aaron Rodgers, I don't know who else would be up on that list. I mean, they're in a class up by themselves. Now, Adam Schefter reports that Pickens could be, quote, expendable, in part because he's still on a favorable rookie contract. Onside, offside, the Steelers should trade Pickens before the draft.
I don't think so. And remember, the draft is only 3 days away. If you're getting an early second-round pick and he was a second-round pick, okay, maybe I would consider it. But I think this should be proven. Like, George, you think you're all that. We haven't seen you consistently your first 3 years in the league be all that. So you're a second-round pick. You're in the final year of your contract. If we want, we had the luxury to franchise tag you. You don't have a fifth-year option because you weren't a first-round selection. So go show me that you're worth the money. And that's the risk that I would take, where even if, and we've seen Pittsburgh move on from wide receivers before. Pittsburgh's had a lot of great wide receivers. If you go back and you look really, even more than just the last 20 years, but really in the last 20 years, they have drafted and they have got a lot of wide receivers, and they usually let most of them walk. But if I'm Mike Tomlin, my preference is to keep George Pickens and see if he could actually mature this year. I'm not anticipating him maturing. I do think that whenever there's another alpha in the locker room, that there's going to be problems. Like, look, I wouldn't call Deontay Johnson an alpha. And look how that relationship worked out with Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. DK Metcalf is better than George Pickens, and he just got paid. So if you get a second, I would think about trading him, but probably I don't think you're going to get a second now. And I would prefer to keep him on the roster. Like, if it's a third, a fourth, or fifth, that doesn't really interest me. It has to at least be a second. You're not going to get a first. So the Steelers should trade Pickens before the draft. I would probably say it's better to stash him on your roster, keep him on the roster, and see if he can live up to the hype this year and then address it after this season. So I would go offside on trading Pickens right now.
Offside. Now, the NBA announced the finalists for their regular season awards, with Jokic, SGA, and Giannis battling for MVP. However, Defensive Player of the Year, there's a bit of a controversy. Wemby was a virtual lock to land the award in just his second season, but is now ineligible under the league's new minimum games played rules because of his injury. Therefore, the Cavs' Evan Mobley, the Warriors' Draymond Green, and the Hawks' Dyson Daniels are the three finalists. So onside, offside, the game's limit for awards should only apply to load management and not to legitimate injuries.
So I have sympathy for Wemby, obviously, with the blood clots. It is a Defensive Player of the Year award. So if you can't qualify, and it's not his fault, right? But if you can't at least play 65 games in a season, it's tough to say you were the Defensive Player of the Year. I think it's too much of a gray area here. It's unfortunate for Wemby. There's no doubt about it. But how do you determine what's load management and what's a legitimate injury? Like, if a player's leg is really hurting him, then they just list it as a leg injury instead of a load management night, even if it probably could have been healthy enough to play? If you can't make it through 65 games in the season, you probably shouldn't in most cases. This could be an exception, but in most cases, you probably shouldn't win the award. So the game limit for award should only apply to load management and not legitimate injury. I think it's just too much of a gray area, so I would go offside on that one.
Offside. Now, as expected, Nico Iamaleava.
He's right there. Nico Iamaleava, Kudavita Scarlatos.
No, that's Nico Harrison. I'm sorry, you're getting your Nikos confused.
That's not nice. I wouldn't call Nico Scarlatos Nico Harrison. That's like Voldemort in my world right now.
First of all, he who shall not be named. You can't say that name in here.
Well, I just did.
All right. Well, beware. I don't know Zach. Hey, Lord Voldemort. I don't know this guy.
Yeah.
Now, as expected,
Nico, man, he just called you Nico Harrison. That's as bad as it gets.
I'll plead the fifth on this.
Yeah,
one.
now you sound like Nico Harrison. Jeez,
well,
nervous.
No, see, I'm pleading the fifth, not saying anything. Nico Harrison just keeps running his mouth when he should.
Oh, my God. Nico Harrison. You want to talk about one of the biggest villains in the history of sports. He's up there now in my book. If we're sitting here a year from now and I'm praising Nico Harrison, I will be shocked. Shocked. All right, what do we got with Nico Iamaleava?
Do you think Nico Harrison is a villain to the rest of the world outside of the Mavericks fans? Like, you don't like him, but do you think, non-Mavericks fans dislike him?
Yes,
They think he's stupid, but I don't dislike him.
That's surprising. Out of all the people you dislike, you don't dislike Nico Harrison?
I mean, he made a really dumb trade, and it got terrible return.
It's inexcusable what he did. People hate incompetence. People hate buffoonery. People hate jackassery, and he's all the above. Yeah, I can't stand it. I'm not a Mavs fan. I hate this guy's guts.
That's interesting. Now, as expected, a different Nico Iamaleava announced that he will be transferring to UCLA after his contract battle with Tennessee, but no word yet on his NIL package looks like for the Bruins. Over the weekend,
I saw something that was $1.75 million he got. Which is below the $2 million he was getting at Tennessee.
And well below the $4 million he was asking for. I'd like to think that he probably is getting at least closer to that $2 million, maybe above it, but maybe if that 175 is
probably
legitimate.
not. This dude doesn't have that much. And also, you never know what's legit with NIL and the numbers. But let's be real here. He's leaving Tennessee. He couldn't go to another SEC school. And it wasn't like he was this hot commodity. He had to settle on UCLA, so I wouldn't be shocked if he got below $2 million. And it's not him who I have the problem with. It's more so his dad. And, I still wouldn't reject $1.75 million if I'm being honest, but you kind of get what you deserve because you probably should have stayed at Tennessee.
Well, this weekend, the USA Today Sports published an interview with Coach Prime, who said, quote, "There should be some kind of cap on NIL. Our game should emulate the NFL game in every aspect. Onside, offside, the NCAA should institute a salary cap for NILs."
Yeah, you need some rules. There should only be one transfer portal window, and there should be some salary cap, and it could get dicey, it could get tricky, because a kid could still say he wants $4 or $5 million, but there should be a limit on how much you are allowed to spend, not on the individual, just as the team as a whole. So I think that would be fine, and that would be healthy, but we need some more order in college football and college sports right now, because I'm all for the transfer portal. I'm all for name, image, and likeness. I'm all for making money for these kids, because for years they didn't legally get a chunk of the pie and a piece of the pie. There's got to be some clarity here. There's got to be more structure because this stuff, it gives you a headache really trying to figure out everything. So the NCAA should institute a salary cap for NIL onside.
Now, the Yankees got screwed twice by the umps on Sunday, and the Bombers are not happy. First, Max Fried had a no-hitter through 6 innings, but an official scorecard changed an inning later, turned an error into a hit, and ended the no-no, which was just ridiculous. Then in the 8th, the crew called an Aaron Judge home run foul and even upheld the call after replay review, despite video showing the ball clearly being fair. So onside, offside, the umps got both calls wrong.
So let's be real here. The official score was actually right. It just should not take 2 innings. You have something in the 6th. How does it take you that long until the 8th to say, oh, we're going to change it? But when you look back, it was originally ruled an error. The batter would have beat that ball out easily. And even Aaron Boone basically admitted it afterwards. So I do think it was a hit. I just don't like how the process in deciding it was a hit. That's antiquated baseball for you. The other one, I like the way that Aaron Boone said it after the game. He talked about like the audacity of the review to not overturn it. If the umpire misses it at third base, that's one thing that happens, right? Human error, it's part of it. But you have checks and balances in place, and that's reviewable. And when you go to review, that ball is clearly fair. Now, I've always said that they should make the foul pole taller because at first you didn't know where the heck the ball was. I was watching the game live. But on review, it is clear as clear could be that that's a home run. So I don't think they got screwed on the reversal in terms of it changing from an error to a hit because it was a hit. I just don't like the process and how they got to the right answer. But yes, they did get screwed on the home run for Aaron Judge. So that's a split, so I go offside in the question.
Offside.
Padres star Luis Arraez was involved in a scary incident yesterday after colliding with Astros' Mauricio Dubon while trying to beat out a grounder at first base. Arraez stayed on the ground and was stretchered off the field, taken to the hospital, but thankfully reports say he's been released and has now rejoined the team. The collision led many to call for the league to add safety bags, which we've seen in college and obviously like Little League and other lower levels. They're orange-colored bases in foul territory so that the runners can run through first base and not collide with the first baseman like they have in some of those other leagues. Now, onside, offside, MLB should add safety bags to first base to avoid these types of collisions.
I feel horrible that he got hurt. Don't get me wrong. I saw that yesterday. But I don't think we need to add safety bags at first base. I don't. This is an anomaly. It's an unfortunate situation. I don't think you now need to add an extra bag there, and you usually don't see things like this happen. So MLB should add safety bags at first base to avoid these types of collisions. I am going offside.
Offside.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Where will Shedeur Sanders go? How about the rest of the NFL draft? Is Ashton Jeanty definitely a lock to go to the Raiders at 6? What surprises can we see on draft night? Chris Trapasso does a great job, CBS Sports NFL draft analyst. He will join us on the other side.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
3 days away from the NFL draft and the first round commencing in Green Bay. We bring on now Chris Trapasso. Does a great job for CBS Sports as a draft analyst. He's kind enough to join us right now. Chris, appreciate the time. How are you?
I'm doing great, Zach. I always love coming on to your show, and especially during draft week. It's kind of like the little cherry on top of the sundae, so thanks again for having me.
Well, hopefully we're a good taste in Sunday. I got to start you off with your mock draft. I just read your latest one on CBS Sports. There's been a lot of talk today about maybe Ashton Genty going 5 to the Jaguars. I've thought, like most, that he's going to go 6 to the Raiders. If he doesn't go to the Raiders or Jacksonville, I then say, oh, for certain he'll go to Chicago at 10. You haven't fallen all the way to 20th with the Broncos. Explain that to me.
Well, it feels like even though we had a little bit of a running back renaissance this past year, obviously, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, even Josh Jacobs, that in general, teams in this league understand that not only in general the running back position still has a lesser value, but it's a really deep running back class. There are the Omarion Hamptons and the Caleb Johnsons, Bashal Tutins. There's so many names. I could list names for the next 2 minutes if I wanted to at this running back position. So I think that if we do see a little bit of a fall for Ashton Jeanty will be the reason why.
Also, when we get to Shedeur Sanders, you have him going 21. If you would have told me that a month ago, I would have said you're crazy, but that's actually how I started the show today. I said Browns aren't taking him at 2, Giants aren't taking him at 3. I'm not anticipating the Raiders to bite at 6. I don't think the Saints, they could, but I don't think they will at 9. So maybe the Giants, because they've had so many meetings with him, could come back up in the first round, but that's unlikely. I'm starting to feel pretty good about Shedeur winding up at Pittsburgh at 21, and I don't think, even though Shedeur may not feel great about it in the moment, that it's necessarily a bad thing, because I'd rather be on the Steelers than the other 4 teams that I just mentioned.
100%. That's what I was going to say, that even though that does feel crazy, if you were to have talked to either of us a month ago, that it felt like Shedeur Sanders had to have been a top 10 pick in this class, I would say Pittsburgh or in LA with the Rams would be the 2 best landing spots for Shedeur Sanders. Mike Tomlin is the master of dealing with personalities and media circuses and still getting the Steelers to 9 or 10 wins. I understand that the Steelers fan base wants more. They want to see wins in the playoffs and championships. But to come to a team that now has some receiving firepower with George Pickens and DK Metcalf, a championship at times caliber defense, or certainly a playoff caliber defense, I think Shedeur Sanders in a very stable organization that is never going to let Shedeur be bigger than the organization would be really good for him. So you're right. Even if he experiences that Aaron Rodgers draft day fall, I think in Pittsburgh might be the best chance for him to ultimately become a quality quarterback in the NFL.
What is your evaluation of Shedeur Sanders? Because I think the process has been a little bit unfair from what I thought he was viewed right when the college football season ended to what has happened in these last 2 to 3 months.
Okay, so I'll say that as someone that's not in the interview rooms with the teams, I can't factor that in too much to my own evaluations, although, like you're mentioning, has not been... Whether it's fair or not, it has not been great for Shedeur Sanders that, like we said, a month or 2 ago, we would have said, oh, he's going to be a top 5 to top 7 pick. Now we're all realizing, yeah, he might be outside of the top 10, and that maybe seems the most likely. I think on the field, film, analytics, he feels like a mid to a late first-round quarterback prospect. Teddy Bridgewater, who was the last pick in the first round in 2014, or Geno Smith, who was one of the first picks in round 2 the year before that in 2013. That's kind of how I view him, which is a fine quarterback. Those teams that had Bridgewater and Geno Smith have gotten to the playoffs, have won playoff games. So it's not like it's a huge slight to him, but I think in most draft classes, he would not have garnered that top 10 pick, even if there weren't any of the off-field or maturity or media circus concerns with Shedeur Sanders.
The Tennessee Titans haven't had a franchise quarterback since Steve McNair. They've tried in the draft. It just hasn't worked out for them. What do you think that the upside is for Cam Ward in the NFL, who now is pretty much everyone's QB1 in this draft?
Yeah, that's true. He is, any other draft analyst you would have on here would say the same thing, that it was early in the process. Some people maybe like Sanders more, but as time progressed, it felt like he is the overwhelming favorite to not just be the first pick, but everyone's favorite quarterback in this class. What I would say is right now, similar to Sanders, he would not be a number 1 overall pick type player in almost any other draft class that I've evaluated. But your question about upside, I think, is a good one, because what I like maybe more than any specific trait, arm strength, improvisation, where he's pretty good with Cam Ward, is that starts at Incarnate Word, goes to Washington State, plays pretty well, goes to Miami in the ACC. No one was really quite sure how he was going to make that second jump in his 3rd school in college, throws 40 touchdowns, and is a great quarterback against better competition. So even though he's not 20 or 21 years old, he's an older quarterback prospect. The experience is there, and it's an upward-facing arrow. So I think we saw him overachieve at all 3 of his stops in college, and that makes me think that there's a decent likelihood that he could do the same as a professional.
Does the draft really start with the Jaguars, or does it start with the Raiders? Because I think most people now, and I'm reading your mock, have Cam Ward going 1, Travis Hunter going 2, Abdul Carter going 3. Most have the Patriots taking Will Campbell at 4, and a lot of people have Mason Graham going to the Jaguars. So with what we know When do you think the draft actually starts where we could maybe have something that goes a different way than how most people are mocking it right now, Chris?
Zach, as a draft analyst, I love a super specific question like that. I think it starts actually at 5. And from 5 to 9, we have a lot of teams that have new head coaches, new general managers. We don't have the blueprint for, oh, hey, they usually favor athleticism over stats, or they like big body players from the SEC, or they like to lean small school. So with James Gladstone, the Jaguars GM at 34 years old, youngest GM in the NFL, learned under Les Snead with the Rams, who is one of the best GMs in football and has long been one of the best GMs in football. I think there it ultimately starts. You have a similar situation at 6 with the Raiders, 7 with the Jets, 8 with the Panthers. They need a lot. And then 9 with the Saints, a lot of new pieces. So I think that will be probably the most fun that we're going to have and that we've had in a long time inside the top 10, because there's so many unknowns in terms of the people actually making the selections.
Can you see the Rams maybe moving up? If Shedeur starts to fall, could you see the Rams being one of those teams? I know right now you have Jalen Milroe mocked to them at 26. Could you see maybe the Rams being the Shedeur Sanders business where they move up from 26 to, let's say, 19 or 20?
Absolutely. I mean, the Rams are one of those clubs, and I just mentioned Les Snead. They are not afraid to go against the grain when it comes to the draft process and then ultimately picking in the first and the second round. I mean, to go back-to-back defensive linemen, both Florida State players last year, no one saw that coming with Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. They don't send their scouting staff to the combine. They don't do pre-draft workouts or visits. So it wouldn't be shocking that, even though we wouldn't necessarily say with Matthew Stafford there in LA and still playing really good football late into his 30s, that they would be wanting to do something that would set that team up long term. I think it would give Sean McVay more motivation to stay on as a head coach and try to rebuild that team with a young quarterback. And although they ultimately moved off of Jared Goff and got Matthew Stafford, there's a lot of Jared Goff to Shedeur Sanders' game as well. Certainly someone that didn't ultimately work out long-term in LA, but Sean McVay got to a Super Bowl with him. So that wouldn't be surprising if we see some maybe surprising maneuvering from the Rams to ultimately get a quarterback, even though that's not their biggest need on Thursday night.
And like what we've been talking about, Chris Trapasso, you have Cam Ward going 1 to Tennessee. You have Shedeur going 2 at 21 to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then you have the Rams scooping up Jalen Milroe. Is that how you rank the quarterbacks in this draft class, or is it more so just in terms of fit there? Is Jalen Milroe your third best quarterback?
I have him as my second best quarterback. I'm a big traits guy. I think what has gone on early in the process, or what went on early in the process with Jalen Milroe, was a little bit unfair to him. I know that you kind of felt the same about Shedeur Sanders, but I think Anthony Richardson's second season, all of the games with a sub 50% completion percentage, he really halted all of the momentum for teams wanting that high upside, highly athletic quarterback. Before that, when Anthony Richardson was the 5th pick in the draft in 2023, everyone was looking for that type of player. So I think Jalen Milroe and Anthony Richardson are not the same prospect. Jalen Milroe is a lot more experienced, threw a lot more passes, and started a lot more games than Anthony Richardson. There's a glimmer of Lamar Jackson to his game in terms of how he runs, but very similar in terms of acing the interview process, being really coachable, being smart, not a polished passer, but a tremendous runner. That reminds me so much of Jalen Hurts, who teams ultimately now regret that they let him be a second-round pick and land in a great situation.
Yeah, here's my problem, Milroe. The floor and the ceiling. It's like there's some games like Georgia this year where you're like, wow, this could be a Heisman Trophy guy. And then there's games like Oklahoma. I never see like an average game for him. And I know you don't want average from quarterbacks, but for him, if it's all or nothing, I wouldn't mind a few average games compared to the nothing games.
No, that's a great point. Actually, in my scouting report for Jalen Milroe, I wrote that he's constantly swinging for the home run. And in the NFL, he needs to learn to just try to hit the ball the opposite field for a base hit. And I think that's what the Eagles have done a great job with Jalen Hurts. They have given him a lot of RPOs and tunnel screens, check the football down. Now, obviously, with Saquon Barkley, he can lean on the run game. And Jalen Milroe has a better arm and is more of an explosive player than Jalen Hurts. So Whether Jalen Milroe ultimately learns how to try to hit singles and not consistently look for those home runs, that remains to be seen. But that was my biggest critique with him, even though I do like him as my second quarterback.
So you had Milroe 2, Ward 1, Shedeur is 3, right?
Shedeur 3, yep.
Okay,
Dart 4.
so and you have Dart 4. Dart to me, I don't understand this. At the end of the year, and I don't think Milroe should be a first-round pick either, personally. But at the end of the year, who was saying that Jackson Dart was a first-round pick? What are you hearing how people view Jackson Dart right now?
Yeah, it is really interesting that this phenomenon happens every year, and it is exactly why I watch quarterbacks as early as I can, early January, right when those bowl games are done, or I guess now they get done late January, because I don't want to change my evaluations based on the Senior Bowl or interviews or seeing these inflated or descending draft stocks. I don't understand it at the quarterback position, but it does feel like a lot of teams like the fact that Jackson Dart was a big-time recruit. The mobility is there. Although the system was very gimmicky at Ole Miss, learning from Lane Kiffin is probably not the worst guy that you can learn throwing the football from, obviously with the NFL background early in his coaching career. I don't love him. I think he'll ultimately be overdrafted, but I think the mobility and the arm strength and the experience, 3 years as a full-time starter at Ole Miss, are the reasons why Jackson Dart will probably be a first, if not a very early second-round pick.
I think that could be fascinating, the start of the second round. Because if you don't get these teams that trade back up into the first round, how many of those teams are lurking to start the second round with the Giants, the Browns, the Raiders, the Saints? You could see a flurry of these quarterbacks go in round number 2.
100%. And I think that's what we'll ultimately see. And it'll be fitting for this quarterback class because for as much as and I'm certainly in the media, but the media at large has tried to inflate these quarterbacks, I don't really think it's that good of a quarterback class. And it would be fitting because if you usually love a quarterback, you pick him in the first round. You don't hope that he's there in round 2, but I do think we're going to see the Jackson Darts and the Jalen Milroes and the Tyler Shucks ultimately go in round 2 and round 3, where teams just feel like there's better value, but aren't completely sold on them as ultimately being franchise quarterbacks.
I think the 5 best players, not when they're going to go, but I think the 5 best players in this draft are Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Mason Graham, Ashton Genty, and Tyler Warren. Who are your 5 best players in this draft?
So I would sub out Tyler Warren and throw in James Pierce from Tennessee. And that's not factoring in any of the red flags like you're mentioning. There's apparently maturity concerns. We saw it in Bob McGinn's scouting series where he talks to all the scouts. Bruce Feldman came out with the Draft Confidential that kind of echoed some of those same concerns. In terms of just getting after the quarterback, I think James Pierce, back-to-back seasons in the SEC with a pressure rate over 21%. That is astronomically high. Ran sub 4.5 at the combine. From a traits perspective, it's all there. He's 6'5", almost 250 pounds. So those first 4, I completely agree with. They are safe and have upside. They're explosive players, very productive. I like Ty Warren. I'm a little bit lower on him. And I think that James Pierce, if there were no medical concerns, would be vying with Abdul Carter to be the first edge rusher off the board.
Now, it's interesting because I look at a lot of these mock drafts, and you have James Pierce Jr. going 8 to Carolina, and then Ted McMillan going 9 to the Saints. Those are the 2 guys. There is such a wide range. I could see them in the top 10, and then I see them, somewhere in the 20s. How early do you think McMillan could go? Because it feels like when the season ended, everyone had him going in the top 10, and now, today you heard he could maybe go 5 to the Jaguars, but then some people still think he could fall to the top 15 picks.
That is the theme of this draft. I mean, it was a perfect segue because I think that in general, those top 3 or 4 that you mentioned are the only blue chip prospects in this class. We normally have offensive tackle. We don't really have that. Maybe some teams love Will Campbell, but the short arms and the unprecedentedly short wingspan, I think, are concerning. So the theme of this draft is wide range of opinions. Now, ultimately, all it takes is one team to make a player, the 15th overall pick or the 9th overall selection. I've heard, and for my own evaluation, it feels like Ted McMillan, like you mentioned, could go top 10 or could be a pick in the 20s because he's so different from the modern day wide receiver where he's not going to get open a ton, but at 6'4" and 220 is kind of a throwback outside wide receiver that wins with his body and after the catch.
Who are some other players that you're hot on that maybe people nationally are not on?
I love Jack Bash, the wide receiver from TCU. I mean, his story with what he did at the Senior Bowl after tragically losing his brother in those terrorist attacks, that was the cherry on top for his pre-draft process. But started at LSU, was on the same LSU team as Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas in 2021, and Jack Bash led that team in catches. Transfers to TCU, does not get good quarterback play, but goes 60 catches for over 1,100 yards this past season. Reminds me a lot of Puka Nacua. I think with how he catches the football after the catch, is just dynamic. He's a big-bodied wide receiver. I think we'll ultimately look back and think that Jack Bash probably should have been a first-round pick. And I love Antoine Powell-Ryland, the edge rusher from Virginia Tech. He's short, does not have crazy long arms, but 3 or 4 years at Virginia Tech, pressure rate was really high, wins with his hands, bend around the corner is there. Reminds me of someone that was in my backyard for a long time, Jerry Hughes of the Buffalo Bills, who was a late first rounder out of TCU in 2009 and had actually still in the NFL, but had a long prime in Buffalo. Antoine Powell-Ryland and Jack Bash are two of my favorites, probably picked on day 2 or early day 3.
So then last thing I'll ask you, Chris Trapasso, give me a wow moment. Like on Friday, we're coming in off the first round on Thursday. What do you think is the wow moment of this NFL draft?
Shedeur Sanders falling. I think it's a bad combination to not be that great of a quarterback prospect, and then whether it's fair or not, at least presenting that he's a little bit entitled or feels like he's already arrived. That's not a good combination. You can be entitled, a little bit of a diva, have a famous dad, create a circus if you're Trevor Lawrence or you're Joe Burrow or you're Caleb Williams in terms of pure talent, arm strength, mobility, super accuracy. Shedeur Sanders is good in all of those areas, but he's not great in any of those areas. So I think it will not only take a head coach and a GM, but also an owner to sign off on ultimately just picking a quarterback in general, but someone as polarizing as Shedeur Sanders. I think we see him drop a little bit further than you and me would have thought at least a month ago.
He's Chris Trapasso from CBS. Chris, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Zach.
There you go. Chris Trapasso joining us on the show with some NFL draft tidbits as we are 3 days away from the first round of the NFL draft. When we come on back, I got 3 people in the top 10. I'm not saying this is where they're definitely going to go, but don't be surprised if they go in the top 10. I'll give you 3 selections. We'll look at 5, 9, and 10 when we come on back. Update time first. Here's Zach.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
After falling short of the playoffs, the Hawks have fired GM Landry Fields and promoted Ansi Saleh. They also announced they'll be looking for a president of basketball operations. The NBA playoffs continue tonight with 2 first-round games. The Knicks host the Pistons after pulling away late with a big fourth quarter to take the opener. Detroit took a big step forward this year, but learned the postseason is much different. Tobias Harris, one of the Pistons with enough playoff experience, promises a different game tonight.
Vets like myself are here to make sure this group's spirit is up. It's the best time in the world to play basketball, best time of year to play basketball in the NBA playoffs, and we're excited and we're embracing this challenge. So, drop our first game, but we'll be ready to go for game 2.
Also tonight, the Clippers and Nuggets meet in Denver, which outlasted LA in overtime to win the series opener. As expected, Duke's Cooper Flagg is headed to the NBA draft, where he's expected to be the top pick overall. Patriots Day in Boston, the Red Sox topped the White Sox 4-2, and a pair of Kenyans won the Boston Marathon. John Career was the men's winner, while Sharon Lokedi set a new record, finishing first for the women in 2:17:22, over 2.5 minutes better than the previous record. I'm Rich Acker.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Zach Gelb Show.
The NFL Draft Preview is sponsored by Ego, tools that deliver or exceed the power and performance of gas without the noise, fuss, and fumes. For any outdoor challenge, count on Ego, tools to deliver the power, performance, and innovation you need. Ego, power beyond belief. I have 3 potentially surprising picks in the NFL Draft that if it does happen, don't be surprised by them. Now, 2 I think are reaches. 1 I think has a very good chance of happening. So I was reading Adam Schefter's article where Shefty was the one last year that was the first person that alluded to a few days before the draft that Michael Penix Jr. could be the pick 8th overall to the Atlanta Falcons. So just using that for a little information, and he was all over Bo Nix going 12 to the Denver Broncos. If you would have told me that, though, a week before the draft, or even Schefter when he said that a few days before the draft, I would have seriously rolled my eyes about it. But Schefter's as good as they come, even though he's kind of annoyed me here with the whole Brown stuff in terms of, it's starting to feel like it's going to be Shedeur, then it's starting to feel like it's Abdul Carter, and now it's Travis Hunter. He's been all over the place with the Browns. But everyone is deserving of a mulligan when it comes to the NFL Draft. Well, Schefter in his article today, a few days before the draft, from what he's hearing, he did discuss the possibility of the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Ted McMillan at 5. And the reason why is because a lot of people say that McMillan reminds him of Mike Evans. And remember, Liam Cohen was just in Tampa Bay where he did get to coach Mike Evans. And if you're trying to fix that situation in Jacksonville, I personally think it's going to be Mason Graham 5th overall. But with that being said, I take a look at the entirety of this whole situation. Everyone feels like it's going to be Mason Graham. So can maybe something unexpected happen? Yeah, definitely. It can. So with that being said, I look at Ted McMillan at 5. If you're trying to save Trevor Lawrence, maybe it's becoming a little bit more intriguing to go with an offensive player instead of a defensive player when you look at the Jaguars in at 5. I've also seen others say Ashton Genty going 5. I would be a little bit surprised by that. I still feel like Ashton Genty's going to go 6 to the Raiders, but hey, I've seen crazier things happen. I'll give you a spicy take here. I'll give you a Zach Gelb spicy take here when it comes to running backs, and it's not Ashton Genty. So we talk about the possibility of Ted McMillan going 5. Let's just say that Ashton Genty goes 6 to the Raiders. Could that start a trend maybe with running backs? Because remember a few years ago where Bijan Robinson, he went in the top 10 to the Atlanta Falcons? I went back and I looked at this today. Because at 12th overall, you got to see the selection occur of Jahmyr Gibbs in that draft. I looked at a Daniel Jeremiah mock draft from a few days before the draft when Jahmyr Gibbs ended up going 12th overall. And Jahmyr Gibbs was projected to go to the Philadelphia Eagles, who were picking later on in that draft. So could we maybe see history repeats itself where you see 2 running backs go in the first 12 picks? In this case, it would be 2 running backs going in the top 10 picks. Ben Johnson comes over from the Chicago Bears. Ben Johnson, right, on that Lions staff. We know the Lions had so much success for all those years with Montgomery and then also with Jahmyr Gibbs. Could you potentially see, I'm just throwing this out there, could you potentially see maybe Omari and Hampton go earlier than what people anticipate, where no one right now is predicting him in the first 10 picks? But if Jahmyr Gibbs, if Ashton Genty goes off the board at 6 or even at 5, could you get a Jahmyr Gibbs type of situation where he goes and Jahmyr Gibbs went at 12th the Lions and everyone was like, wow. I'll never forget, I was on the air with JR and Perloff. Perloff loved the pick. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I was not expecting this. I'm stunned by this. And look how well this pick ended up working out for Jahmyr Gibbs. So a possibility, and this is the luxury the Bears have because the Bears revamped their offensive line this offseason with Dahlman, with Jonah Jackson, and then also bringing in Joe Thuney from the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they would prefer either Tyler Warren or they would prefer Ashton Genty going at 10. I don't think either of those guys will be available. If there is someone to be available at 10 that's named Genty or Warren, I think it's more likely to be Warren than Genty. I really do believe that. I guess there's a possibility the Jets pass on him at 7 in Tyler Warren, and then he's there at 10 for the Chicago Bears. But if Genty and Warren are off the board, maybe Ben Johnson's like, hey, we need a little bit of an extra pop on offense. Yeah, we got Caleb Williams at the quarterback. Yeah, you take a look and you got Roma Dunze and you got DJ Moore. We need something else at the running back position, and maybe you end up seeing Amari and Hampton go way earlier than anyone could have expected. So I did look back today when that all happened with Jahmyr Gibbs, and it does kind of line up with the way that we're talking about Amari and Hampton and Jahmyr Gibbs in that whole situation. Maybe that ends up following suit and following history with the whole Bijan Robinson, Nash, and Genty stuff. So Ted McMillan at 5, I think, would be something that would provide a wow. So I threw out that Amari and Hampton would definitely be a wow at 10, but I threw that out there. Another potential surprise, but this one I think should happen. Like Ted McMillan, I don't think should be the 5th overall pick. Amari and Hampton, I don't think should be the 10th overall pick. But at 9, you have the New Orleans Saints. And when the Saints are on the clock, everyone's going to be saying, is this where Shedeur Sanders goes? Like whether it's ESPN or the NFL Network, whichever draft coverage you're watching, Shedeur, if he's still on the board there, people will be like, is this a Shedeur Sanders landing spot? It doesn't mean they think Shedeur is going to go there. But they will bring that up, and that will be the first talking point. Will Johnson, to me, if the Saints don't take Shedeur Sanders, and let's assume there that Warren's off the board, Mason Graham's off the board, Genty's off the board, right? Other big-name guys there. And could they go defense if Jalen Walker's still there? Absolutely. And maybe James Pierce Jr. is one of those guys that Trapasso's high on that ends up being the pick here at 9. But Will Johnson this time last year was perceived to be a top 5 talent in this draft. He was injured last year. Now, some people wonder how actually hurt he was in terms of, okay, were you just basically giving up on the season and getting ready for the draft, which we've seen before. But Will Johnson, I think, is now, it's weird to say that a player who's a top 15 player in the draft is underrated. But from where he was last year to where he is now, and I don't see a lot of people predicting him, if any at all, in the top 10, I think the Saints should seriously consider taking Will Johnson with the 9th overall pick in the draft. And where did Will Johnson play his college ball? Michigan. We talk more Michigan next, as we will do a little NFL draft preview with Jason Avant, who is the former Michigan wide receiver, now does a great job on their sidelines. We'll talk a little Mason Graham. We'll talk a little Will Johnson, Kenneth Grant, Josiah Stewart, and we'll get a bunch of happenings from Jason Avant when we come on back on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network after these short messages.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond. He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, away we go. Hour number 3 of our radio program. We are 3 days away from the start of the 2025 NFL Draft, and there has been a lot of buildup to this draft. And I think at this point, everyone has draft fatigue, and they just want it to be Thursday already. And the reason why I think there's fatigue is because you have so much differentiating information, and there's a lot of uncertainties in this draft. I think the only thing we know for sure right now is that the first 2 picks of the draft are going to be Cam Ward going 1 to Tennessee, and then with the second overall pick, it's Travis Hunter going to Cleveland. I think the majority of us do believe that Abdul Carter will be the 3rd overall pick for the Giants, and then the Patriots become a level of intrigue, and there's a great level of intrigue. I would assume it's Will Campbell, but could they trade back? Could they maybe go elsewhere? We'll have to wait and see when it comes with the New England Patriots. But I would sort of be surprised at this point if you don't have, with the 1st overall pick it being Cam Ward, the 2nd overall pick it being Travis Hunter, the 3rd overall pick being Abdul Carter, and then Will Campbell going 4. And I would have assumed that Mason Graham would have been the 5th pick, but there's been some differentiating thoughts on that, in the last 24 hours or so. All righty, it's time to get to a little prospect profile. Let's hit the sounder.
The Combine is over, and the 2025 NFL Draft is almost upon us.
With the first pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Caleb Williams. The Carolina Panthers select Bryce Young. The Jacksonville Jaguars select Trevor Lawrence. The Cincinnati Bengals select Joe Burrow.
Let's find out whose stock is falling and whose stock is rising.
Jackpot, baby!
And now it's time for the Zach Gelb Show to give you an inside look at some of the biggest draft prospects in this edition of Prospect Profile.
Michigan's going to have 3 guys hear their name called on Thursday night. It could be 4 potentially. Mason Graham, Will Johnson, and also Kenneth Grant will definitely be first-round picks. Josiah Stewart is also a name to watch as well. Let's go out to the guest line right now. Welcome in a former Michigan wide receiver. That does a great job on their sidelines, and that is Jason Avant, kind enough to join us right now on the show. Jason, appreciate the time as always. How you been?
I'm good. How you doing, Zach? It's good to see you, and thank you for having me on.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. So let's start off with Mason Graham. I think he is wonderful. He had one of the best individual performances that I saw this past college football season going up against Ohio State. You've been able to watch him the last few years, being on the sideline, you being a Michigan alum as well, and that being your school. Mason Graham, I have him as the 3rd best player in this draft, pound for pound. I think Abdul Carter, I think Travis Hunter are just slightly better. But what's your analysis on Mason Graham?
Well, he's been dominant since he came to the University of Michigan, and he's just a guy with low body. And I love wrestlers from the D tackle position. He's a state champion wrestler. He knows how to grapple, and he wins fast. That's the thing about Mason. He wins with his hands. He wins with power at times, and he was just unblockable the entire year. He left Kenneth Grant with a lot of one-on-ones, and I think that he is just a can't miss player. So Mason Graham is as advertised. I've seen offensive schemes where both guards and centers were on him. He was still able to beat double and triple teams. Mason Graham's an outstanding football player, and if anyone doesn't pick him in the top 5 picks, they're truly crazy.
I think he's going to go number 5 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's where most people have him mocked right now. I'll tell you, if we were talking about Will Johnson this time last year, people would say, for the 2025 draft, he would be a top 5 pick. In most spots, they don't even have him going in the top 10. I think he could go 9th overall to the New Orleans Saints, but I'm reading a mock draft right now, Jason Avant, that on NFL.com that has Will Johnson falling all the way to the 23rd overall selection. I know he was banged up this year, but he's still a phenomenal football player. Are people sleeping on Will Johnson, in your opinion?
Oh, 100%. The thing about Will Johnson is that earlier in the season, he gave up some yards, not touchdowns, gave up some yards to some smaller frame guys. You know, the 5'8" guy that's super quick, but he adjusted pretty well toward the end of the season with those same type of guys. So you saw him give us some yards for the first time in his career. But talking about a guy that believes that he's the best corner, a guy that's long and rangy, and his ball skills are unbelievable. He will step up toe-to-toe, play man-to-man with the best in the country. You saw it against Marvin Harrison. You saw it against a bunch of guys that are first-round talent. Odunze, he didn't care about those guys. Doesn't matter at all. He wants to be right in front of you, and that's what I like from the cornerback position. You have to believe that you're the best player, and Will Johnson walks around like he's the best player. He knows it in his mind. I think that he'll add great value, especially if he's a guy that's going anywhere beyond 15.
Now, I know you wide receivers are very confident, but there are some corners that keep you up late at night. If you were going up against Will Johnson, would he be one of those guys that keep you up late at night trying to figure out how to crack the code on him?
Well, if you're a guy that is 5'11" or taller, he's going to be a very tough dude to get open on. He just is. It's because he has long arms. He understands the system that you're playing in. He studies up. And he's quicker than most guys. Like for a big body guy, he's extremely quick. So yeah, he would give me a nightmare as a receiver. That's not the type of guy that I would want to go. I like the smaller guys that I can push around a little bit.
Jason Avant here with us. Kenneth Grant. So on the championship team 2 years ago, I thought he was very underrated. You saw him get more shine this year, coming on back with how many guys ended up going to the pros following Harbaugh last year. I think this guy could go as early as like the 15th pick in the draft. He takes up a lot of space on the football field. A lot of people have him in the 20s, but you look at Kenneth Grant. What's your evaluation on him, Jason?
You know what? I think Kenneth has great ability. He has a motor. That's the thing about Kenneth. He has a motor. We saw him run down running backs multiple times at the University of Michigan. I'm talking about guys that were out in the open. He was able to chase them down. So he can move for a big fella. He's explosive. But here's the thing about Kenneth Grant. I believe that he's going to fall to a playoff team, and he'll have the chance to affect their future. You talk about a team like Kansas City or the Eagles or Baltimore, one of those teams that get a chance to get a guy that really is a top 15 talent and get him later in the draft. Because when you talk about quarterbacks mess up the draft every year. You're going to get Jackson Dart, and you're going to get, Shedeur and Cam Ward and all these guys, McCord. Somebody's going to reach and go for a quarterback. He's going to push a guy like Kenneth Grant later toward the end of that draft, and I believe he's going to end up with a playoff team and end up making a difference on a playoff team, which is good for him.
At the end of the season, I thought Josiah Stewart had a chance to be a first-round pick. Anything's still possible. I think he's more likely to go in the second round. He's a player, though, that I can't wait to see what he does in the pros. Coming over from Coastal Carolina, played at Michigan the last few years. I think there's a big upside for him in the league.
Outside of Mason Graham, he was Michigan's, second best player. And that's saying a bunch for that defense. He dominated ball games. You want to know who Josiah Stewart is? Go watch the USC game. Literally won the game by himself. And there's multiple games where Michigan won the game because of him. You double Mason Graham, and he was the guy that was taking advantage of it every single time. And I think people are going to say, he's a smaller guy. He doesn't weigh that much. But there's a lot of guys that may not be the tallest, but he understands how to rush the passer, has a good bull rush for his size, and he's definitely a great speed rusher that has a spin move. He has an array of moves that's going to translate well. So I'm excited to see where he goes. He's one of those guys that when you look 4 and 5 years down the line, somebody's going to be like, oh, he's a genius for taking him in the second or third round. And Josiah Stewart is probably my sleeper overall in the draft because I believe that he is a top 15 talent, but is going to go later in the draft, somewhere second, third round.
How about that? Jason Avant with us. I have to ask you this because it came out that you were the guy that got the flag back after the Ohio State-Michigan game, where Ohio State, yes, they won the championship, but they acted like a bunch of petulant children as Michigan was just celebrating what was a glorious victory, which I still think was an awesome moment in this football season. Did you keep that flag or did you give it back? Like, what did you do with the flag?
You know what? This is funny. I got the flag back. I took it up the ramp and I waved it in all the Ohio State fans' faces that were up at the top of the stadium. And then I waved it as the Michigan players were coming in, and they went crazy. When they saw the flag, they went crazy. And one of the coaches took the flag from me and said, "We're going to put this up in Schembeckler Hall." But they gave me a game ball, and I have like a flag replica and all that stuff. So it was a good time. Man.
Wait, you got a game ball because you got the flag back? Is that right?
Oh, it was crazy. The whole situation was nuts because I'm literally trying to avoid all of that because I'm not a player anymore. I'm trying to go around, and I just see the guy with the flag, and natural football player just came out. So give me that. And yeah, so Coach Moore gave me a game ball for that. And the players have been super, receptive of me being in that role. A lot of asked for advice, and the coaches, tell me to talk to players and stuff. So it's been a great role for me.
You look at the Ohio State players. Will Howard, we'll see when he goes. You got the two running backs that are very successful.
Yeah.
Abuka, he's been around forever. It's almost like that has hurt him here. I think he's going to be a good wide receiver in the NFL.
No, he's a you know what? He's a guy that will translate well, especially if someone will put him in the slot, because he has just a great understanding of how to move guys. He understands how to make a guy move out of their spot, sort of like Allen Iverson when they're crossing over. You see this with Justin Jefferson. You see this with Devontae Adams. All the good receivers in the league, Keenan Allen. These guys can make you move, think that they're doing something else. Lad McConkey's great at it. Like these guys can do that, and Emeka can do that extremely well. So if you can utilize him in that situation where he's in the slot for a really good team that has a quarterback that understands how to utilize him, he's going to be dynamic and he'll go under the radar because he's so polished. He's playing with Jeremiah Smith, but he can be a guy. He would be a great pairing with a guy like Joe Burrow in the slot, like a great pairing with him. It'd be amazing. That would be amazing for him to get there.
Yeah, could you imagine, especially with being able to keep T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, if you could trot out those three guys? Jeez Louise.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, he'd be a great pairing. I doubt if it happened, but like in that situation, it'd be great.
Well, you look at Jeremiah Smith. I thought the world of Marvin Harrison Jr. A year ago, I said if I had one bet on a player to be in the Hall of Fame from last year's draft class, it was going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. How quickly people have forgotten about Marvin Harrison Jr. and all these great wide receivers at Ohio State with what Jeremiah was able to do in year number one. Man, this dude, the ceiling, I don't even think you could put a limitation on him.
He's a nightmare. The kid's a nightmare. So that's the thing. When calling games, I have to watch film on all the kids. That kid has no weaknesses and was the best player since he has stepped on campus. And the only thing that can limit him and limit them is the offensive coordinator, head coach. That's the only thing that can limit that kid. And you saw that with Ohio State season. When they were reluctant to throw him the ball and they became this run-first offense, they struggled. And now when you give him the ball, you make him the focal point, you win the national championship. And that was the difference between the Michigan game and the playoff series, was that they were trying to be Michigan and run the ball on Michigan, and that didn't work. But if you would have just focused on Jeremiah Smith, I believe that Ohio State probably would have won that game, and probably handily. And so he's a game changer. The size, the quickness, the ability to compete for the ball. And that's the undervalued thing about him, his competitiveness. He wants it and he fights for it and he's hungry. That's something that you don't see a lot of, to be the most competitive player at the receiver position. That's the Steve Smiths, and that's a smaller guy, but in the Hall of Fame, just talking about the all-time competitors. He's like a Steve Smith, but in a bigger body. He doesn't talk as much as him, but he's just like that. It reminds me of him. He's a super competitive person.
Let me ask you, by the way, about Travis Hunter as we have you here, Jason Avant. How do you think he should be used in the NFL?
I think there's only one way to use him. So, you think about where he can go. You say he can go to Cleveland, or maybe he goes to the Giants. Both those teams need different things, but I think that in Cleveland you have to use them more at receiver, because you got guys on Cleveland receiving core outside of Jerry Jeudy. There's a bunch of nobodies, right? So you can use him more at receiver, and they have a really good secondary in Cleveland. So you can use him in specialty situations. But I think the most value is to utilize him the way he was being utilized in college. He wants to do it. Let him do it until he proves that he can. Let him do it until there's a bunch of people saying, you can't do that in the NFL. No, let him try. Let's see how durable he can be. Let's see if he's a game changer. Let's see if he's been the one player in the last 100 years of national football, of the NFL, if he can do that. And if he can't, you put him in one spot or the other, but give him the opportunity to try. But I'm not drafting him number 3, and I'm not using him in both aspects of the game, on offense and defense.
Yeah, I know we've never seen anyone like him to this level. It's amazing to me how people are so stubborn, and just because we've never seen it at this level, why people can't at least even contemplate giving it a chance early on and letting him play both ways. And you have a lot of NFL players that don't think it's possible that he could be successful playing both ways in the league.
It's always going to be doubters, because you've never seen it. And that's how people are in general. They're always going to be more negative beforehand, and then they'll come with their crystal ball afterward. Like hindsight is 2020. I knew he can do it, and change their whole opinion of it. But the truth is that you have to give the kid an opportunity to see if he can. His body has held up amazingly in college. Let's see if he can do that in NFL. Am I scared for him because of all of the mileage? Do I want him to play into year 13, 14? Am I worried that he only can last 7 years? Yeah, that's a doubt for all of us. But maybe this kid is made of something different and he can do it. So I say give him that opportunity. But you're going to get those doubters and GMs and players and scouts saying whatever they want to say.
On the way out with Jason Avant. You look at Michigan with how the season ended, especially the last 2 games. I think it changes the way that we look back at this season, and there was a lot of optimism heading into this offseason, and they get Bryce Underwood as well. Where do you think the trajectory under Sharon Moore is for this Michigan program now entering year number 2 with him being the head honcho?
Well, I think that they're heading in the right direction. So Michigan was just offensively challenged last year.
Yeah.
and I'm being kind, offensively challenged.
They couldn't throw the football. I'll say it for you.
Couldn't catch it, just couldn't generate offense at all. And actually was still one of the better defenses, and the defense kept them in the entire year. And guess what? The defense is just as good as they were last year. When you look at all the guys they have coming back that have production, Rayshon Benny, you got TJ Guy, you got a bunch of guys that are coming in and Damon Payne. You got Derek Moore on the back end. You got corners that have had experience in Zeke Berry and Jair Hill. And then you got head busters in Brandon Hillman and Rob Moore that's coming back. So you have a bunch of guys. The linebackers, both starting linebackers are back. So you have a great defense. All you have to be able to do at Michigan this year is probably generate 20, 24 points a game on offense, and you're going to be in the college football playoff. And that's the thing that you have to pitch to your team is, hey, 24, 25 points a game will get us in the college football playoff. Yes, you still have Oregon. Yes, you still have Ohio State there. But yes, 3 or 4 teams can get in from the Big Ten now because the Big Ten has proven that they're one of the better conferences with the SEC. So Michigan is right in position, and Sharon Moore is getting better players. And a lot of Michigan alumni is pitching a lot of money in for it,
for Bryce Underwood.
Yeah, Bryce Underwood, Larry Edson, Tom Brady, bunch of guys, pitching in. So with that, Michigan can be in position because Michigan historically doesn't like to pay players, but now they're realizing where NIL is going, and now they're on board for it. So Michigan has one of the biggest and broadest alumni base. So if they choose to pay people, they'll be at the top of the Big Ten in the national championship picture all the time.
I know you just talked about the team expectations. What do you think are the individual expectations for Bryce Underwood in year 1?
I don't know. I think it's the most unfair position to be in of any player in college football because they're expecting a 17-year-old freshman to do so much.
And the money even amplifies it more now. Let's be real.
The money makes it worse. So there's a learning curve this kid has, and you're hoping that the team can, come together and support him. But I think the expectation to go out there and expect him to be Johnny Manziel is just off. You can't. We need a serviceable quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over, that can throw for 175, 200 yards a game. That's what you need. You need someone to protect the football and be able to make the throws that are there. And I think that if you can put that in Bryce Underwood's head, and that's the expectation, I think it takes away, Michigan being in the national championship and all this pressure just on him. And so I think it's the most unfair position to be in because people have paid him a lot of money. I'm going to take that money at 17 too. So I don't blame him. I want to take it. You'll take it too.
Of course. Right? I take it now at 30.
Yeah, right. I don't blame him at all. So, but again, I can't expect him to be the savior of Michigan football. I can't because I know how hard it is to play college football.
J.J. McCarthy, last thing I'll ask you, Jason.
No, you're fine. Take as much time you want.
What will J.J. McCarthy be in the NFL this year in Minnesota?
He's about to set the league on fire. And this is not, of course, Michigan, bias a little bit. But here's the thing. J.J. McCarthy, when you think about it from the outsider perspective, you let go Sam Darnold, and then you didn't see one single Viking player come out in the media and say anything about it at all. Last year, when Justin Fields got traded to the Steelers or got shipped to the Steelers, you heard DJ Moore and multiple people at the Bears complaining about the quarterback. Well, I don't care about Caleb Williams and all this thing. You heard that crying. You haven't heard one player, and especially Justin Jefferson, said, we're going to be just fine because I believe in J.J. McCarthy. When you have a guy like that and you have an organization like the Vikings have and with their coach, I think that J.J. McCarthy is going to set the world on fire, and I think that they know something that nobody else knows. So that's my take on it.
And I also think that McCarthy can obviously do a little bit more than he was asked to do at Michigan. And
100%.
You throw him in with O'Connell, you got Justin Jefferson, you got Addison, you got Hawkinson. Michigan had a heck of a team, but they didn't have guys that could catch the football like those guys could when JJ was playing at Michigan.
Well, they had guys. They didn't have guys that can uncover as well as those guys can for the Vikings. You're talking about one of the all-time great route runners in NFL history in Justin Jefferson, right? And you're talking about Addison, who can take the top off of defense. Hawkinson, since being at Iowa, can get open. So these guys can create space, and JJ is extremely accurate. That's the thing that people don't give JJ credit for. He threw the ball down the field, and he was accurate, completing 70% of his passes. So you give him space with guys that can get open, he's going to be great in that. He's going to do great.
He's Jason Avant. Jason, always great to catch up with you. Last time I saw you, I think you were doing salsa at an Eagles game, actually.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, so I'm a salsa dancer. I'm almost a pro. I'm getting closer and closer. That's a passion of mine. So
can we see some of the moves before you go?
No, I can't get up and dance here.
You got it. Jason, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
There you go. Jason Avant joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Who are the biggest winners and losers from all the game ones in the NBA playoffs? We'll get to that next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show.
So I'm going to my first baseball game of the season tomorrow. I'm going to Mets and Phillies at Citi Field. So that's going to be on Tuesday night. I did purchase a 20-game plan this year for the Mets. Darren Rovell, he tweeted out a new food item. There's a bunch of different food items. Citi Field has the best ballpark food. I think in all of Major League Baseball, continuously gets voted that way. The Mets have a new chicken bacon ranch egg roll at Mets games this year. Now, I am, to be clear, blue cheese over ranch when it comes to wings. Chicken bacon ranch, though, is an elite, and I mean an elite pizza topping. Not my favorite, but it is pretty high up there. There's a spot right by me in the city that makes a chicken bacon ranch slice that I love. I'm a big buffalo chicken guy, if I'm being honest. And I do like always a pepperoni slice as well. But this chicken bacon ranch egg roll looks phenomenal. How do we feel, by the way, about non-traditional ballpark food? Nico, when you go to the ballpark, what do you kind of have in your mind of getting? Just wondering.
Usually when I go to Citi Field, I'll try to go for the burger, maybe Shake Shack.
Okay.
I used to love the Polar Burger.
I'm not going to lie. I love Shake Shack. When Citi Field first opened, I would go to Shake Shack all the time. You get Shake Shack anywhere. They have a filet mignon steak sandwich at Citi Field. It's Pat LaFrida. I think that's the best ballpark item. But a chicken bacon ranch egg roll. The Mets are really getting into the egg roll business because they had an Italian rainbow cookie. They had a rainbow cookie egg roll last year. Which, if you were doing some things yesterday, that makes it a little bit more appetizing if you go get a little rainbow cookie egg roll.
You mean like hunting for eggs?
Oh, yes. Sure.
Okay, yeah. That's right.
That was the only thing that happened on April 20th.
There's nothing else.
Yesterday.
Yeah, 420. It's just, yeah.
Samter, when you go to a ballpark, do you like just going for hot dog, chicken fingers, and fries, or with now all these ballparks getting a little bit extra elegant, do you get a little elegant in the food department there?
No, for me, I'll typically aim for like a burger. I'm not a big hot dog guy, but I will have it every now and again. I don't like to get too elegant at a ballpark unless I'm like in a suite or something, and there's like certain
that's different,
right? Then you kind of like bougie it up a little bit. But I do remember, like, back in the day when Hideki Arabu came to Yankee Stadium, and it was all over the place, and people were freaking out that they brought sushi to Yankee Stadium. They're like, what? Hot dog, pretzels, and Cracker Jacks is all you need. Sushi? What's that all about? And now every place is like a gourmet, like, restaurant. So I'm good for whatever you want, but personally for me, baseball, hot dogs, and like outdoor barbecue go together.
Yeah, I can't really say you're wrong on that. Now, I will dabble, especially having a 20-game plan on some of the other items. Like, I honestly don't know how, after seeing a photo of this chicken bacon ranch egg roll, I'm not going to have it coming up tomorrow. I'll tell you, you know what I like at a baseball game? Just, getting a beer and like the third or fourth inning on, just having a bag of peanuts and just cracking open those peanuts and, enjoying yourself in the seats, because peanuts absolutely are a mess. But I don't know. I would never get them anywhere else but a ballpark, but that's where I end up getting them at a ballpark. Just is the way that it's happening. All right, anyway. Biggest winners and losers from all the game ones in the NBA. I'll start off with my winner. It's the Minnesota Timberwolves. A lot of people are out on the Timberwolves entering this postseason. I don't think they had a bad season. They only had one fewer victory than the Los Angeles Lakers. With that being said, where they were last year at this time, that they went on that run to the conference finals. Then they ended up losing when many people thought they should have beat the Dallas Mavericks. And this year, with some of the pieces they lost this offseason, losing Karl-Anthony Towns, adding Julius Randle, adding Dante DiVincenzo, this team just didn't pop and they didn't take the next step that they were expected to. But there was a little bit of a prevailing thought. Let's just see what this team is before you write them off, what they do in the postseason. Now, just because you win one game on Saturday night and you take it to the Lakers 117-95, McDaniels was really good. Naz Reid was sensational off the bench. You saw their size was really overwhelming compared to Los Angeles Lakers. So it creates a lot of intrigue in game number 2. But the Timberwolves starting off their postseason victory, their postseason schedule with the victory, I think gets a little intrigue and gets people back in on the Minnesota Timberwolves. So they're my game 1 winner from all the game ones that did happen in the NBA. Samter, who is your game 1 winner?
For me, the game 1 winner, you'd have to go, for me, I think maybe like Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler came into an organization that told him that it almost was like he had to be the savior for a franchise that was a championship caliber team that nobody fully knew whether or not they were still there. They get into the play-in game, and now people are kind of like favoring them to beat the 2 seed, but it really all depends on Jimmy Butler, and he became the first player ever to have 25 points and 5 steals in a debut for the playoffs for a new team. So he showed up for what he had to do. He did what he had to do.
What a bizarre stat, by the way.
I just saw it on Twitter recently. Why not?
Who would have ever thought that? Like, he's the first player debuting on a new team in the postseason, 25 points and 5 steals. It's like, I'm laughing because it's amazing they come up with these stats.
Yeah, he did it on a Thursday under the lights in a town that starts with the letter H while also wearing shoes that are a different color than green. Yeah, so for me, I think it's Jimmy Butler because there's a lot of pressure on him. Everyone knows what Steph can do. Jimmy Butler needs to be the guy who could be the guy in Miami to carry a team in a way that he wasn't able, that Steph hadn't been able to do throughout the year with the rest of this roster. He just needs that, like, he needs to be the 1A. He can't be a 2 or 3. He needs to be 1A.
Well, no, he could be 2. Because if Steph plays the way that he's been playing, Steph is as good as any player in the league. With the way that Steph Curry plays and the ability that he has to just take over a game, being the greatest shooter the game has ever seen. What I would say with Jimmy Butler, he was the coffee to the Golden State Warriors. And people be like, Zach, what the heck are you talking about? They were good. They were fine. They were up. They were alert. But they didn't really get buzzing. They didn't really feel rejuvenated until, like what Samter was saying, until Jimmy Butler got there. And it got them, like, they woke up, they were fine, they were doing a few activities, but they didn't really get their brain really ticking and really moving in the right direction until Jimmy Butler got there, kind of rejuvenated them. Nico, Jimmy Butler off the board. I take the Timberwolves off the board. Who's your biggest game 1 winner in the NBA?
I'm going to go with the Indiana Pacers, and I think a lot of people kind of wrote them off after they went to the conference finals last year. No one really talked about them this year, very quietly sitting in that 4 seed.
You almost forget they got to the conference finals.
Yeah, I mean, they beat the Knicks in that Game 7 when it seemed like everybody on the Knicks roster got hurt.
Yeah, looked like OG Anunoby was holding a number 2, if I'm being honest, when he was walking around that hamstring, barely walking around.
Well, they dominated the Bucks from start to finish in that Game 1 on Saturday, and I'm not trying to look too far ahead, but
I think they're winning the series.
Right.
I picked them before the series started.
I definitely think they beat Milwaukee, and this is also a team that played pretty well against the Cavaliers in the regular season, so they are certainly a team that could make noise. I wanted to see it first in that Game 1 on Saturday against the Bucks, And we certainly did, as they dominated Milwaukee.
Let's go to the Game 1 biggest losers. I'm going to go the Houston Rockets. Now, I preface this by saying I did pick the Warriors to win this series, and I expect the Warriors to win this series, and the Warriors beat the Rockets 95-85, but you're the 2 seed. Everyone's doubting you. You had a chance to shut some people up, and you basically were the team, and you showed why people were doubting you. And when you watched the Rockets last night, I think a lot of people have this thought they could use Kevin Durant, and I've been on this for the last few months. I think Kevin Durant's going to get traded this offseason to reunite with his pal Ime Udoka. But I think right now the Rockets were the biggest losers because they didn't shut anybody up in the narrative that's been building on them that they'll be an easy out in this postseason as a number 2 seed. Samter, who was your biggest loser from the Game 1s of the NBA postseason?
It's tough to call them the loser because not many expected them to win. But what the Pistons were doing to the Knicks and winning at MSG for a team that was a 3 seed, no expectations, a young core, and then to have that 21-0 run in the fourth, it is debilitating, disheartening. That's
demoralizing.
Demoralizing. That's the kind of thing that could just end the series right there. We'll see what the Pistons are made of, but at the end of the day, like for a team that young who hasn't really been tested, it's either going to set them on fire, or we're going to just see them crumble and get swept out of the playoffs after that.
I think this is good. I picked Knicks in 6 before the series started. I think this is going to 5. I do like the Knicks tonight, laying the 6.5 points. I could see the Pistons getting 1 in Detroit. I think this is going to be a gentleman's sweep right now.
Well, the question is, what would you have thought had they won Game 1? Would you have changed your thought?
I still think the Knicks would have won Game 2, and it would have lined up in Game 6. I would still take the Knicks in 6, but yes, it would have been a sense of panic, and people would have been saying Tom Thibodeau needs to be fired and all that stuff. Mikal Bridges also has got to be better. He's good in the defensive end. He did nothing on the offensive end. It helps when Cameron Payne comes off the bench and basically benches Mikal Bridges in that fourth quarter. And Payne unexpectedly had 11 points, but you can't anticipate that. Bridges is not a 1 or a 2 in a championship team. Let's be clear in the NBA. But they gave up so many draft picks. He's not even the Knicks' 3rd best player right now. Jalen Brunson's the best player. Then it's Karl Anthony Towns. And their most important, actually, maybe OG Anunoby. That's who I think OG Anunoby would be the 3rd best player. But you got to get more out of the offensive end from Mikal Bridges. All right, eat Nico. As Nico is distracting me right now, we talk about food. He has pesto on his pasta. And I saw that during the break. It smells absolutely delicious. What pasta did you have yesterday when I saw you?
Yesterday we went with the penne alla vodka.
Oh, my God. How are you still a string bean? You had penne alla vodka one day, you have pesto the next day. How are you a string bean?
I should probably start implementing some meat into the pasta.
Like put a little steak on there.
Yeah.
Get a little chicken in there. And you need a little muscle on those bones of yours. But anyway, who's the biggest loser after Game 1?
I'm going with the Lakers. You talked about it in that first hour. The size we saw in Game 1 against the T-Wolves was an issue. And I think if we're going to hate on Nico Harrison and the Mavericks this much for trading away Luka Doncic, it has to be a two-way street where if you're the Lakers, if they fail to do anything in this postseason, we have to give them just as much hate because this was a golden opportunity for them with Luka Doncic and LeBron James. Who knows what LeBron's future is? Maybe he does come back and play next year as well. But this is a huge chance.
Hold on. LeBron's playing next year.
Well, I think so, too.
LeBron James is not leaving without some sort of retirement tour. You know?
Yeah.
He's not just riding off into the sunset like he's Tim Duncan. Let's be real.
Well, I mean, he's getting older. I mean, how is he he's not gonna be able to put up these same numbers year after year,
Still
right?
Playing
Eventually.
like he's a top 5 player in this league. I'm just saying. I understand what you're saying, but and the Lakers are a loser after Game 1. There's no doubt about it. But there is a 0% chance, unless there's some injury occurs, that LeBron James is not returning for next season. And he's a publicity whore. Like, let's be real. That dude's just not exit stage left. He's not doing that. He is having everyone throw bouquets and getting paraded around. And he deserves it, too. He's the 2nd greatest NBA player of all time. But he's not just going to go out very quietly. All right, if you want to chime on in, 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476. Update time. Here's Zach.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, the Hawks' failure to make it past the play-in tournament cost Landry Fields his job. He was fired as the team's GM, and the Hawks also announced they are looking for a new president of basketball operations. After a weekend long of games, the quartet each day, the schedule is paired to just a doubleheader tonight, starting in New York where the Knicks host the Pistons after using a 21-0 run in the fourth quarter to take the series opener. Isaiah Stewart will sit out tonight due to injury for the Pistons. In the West, Denver will host the Clippers. LA dropped the opener overtime in part due to 20 turnovers. Head coach Ty Lue said it wasn't close enough or wasn't good enough on Saturday.
We expect to win. Like, we're not happy because we went to overtime. Like, they're a good team and we're a good team as well. We just got to do what we're supposed to do. Take care of the basketball, keep them off the glass, and then we'll be fine. But if you turn over 20 times against a team that is number one in offensive transition, then you're going to lose the game. And so we understand that, and we just got to be better.
Duke's Cooper Flagg is headed to the NBA draft as expected and should overall be the top pick. And North Carolina guard Ian Jackson transferring to St. John's. The Seattle Kraken have fired Dan Bylsma after just one season on the job. And Patriots today in Boston, it was the Red Sox over the White Sox 4-2. I'm Rich Jack.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh my God, we're back
Alrighty,
again.
it's time to answer our Ask the Pros question of the day, brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Psych Mamter in the YouTube chat, which, by the way, I thought Anthony Gallo, who's our digital guy, we pay him. He did a good job with the Muppets that we posted last week. Psych Mamter did a Muppet of Hickey. It is impeccable. And then Psych Mamter also did some like cereal box of me with buffalo wings and blue cheese. I would love to meet the great Psych Mamter one day because his content and what he tweets me and what he posts in the YouTube chat is very entertaining. But his question is, Zach, would you rather see the Patriots trade down a bit or take the T-Rex at 4? You could submit a question by tweeting at INF Sportsnet or at Zach Gelb or finding us on our YouTube chat using the hashtag #AskThePros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. I want Abdul Carter. I want Travis Hunter. I am upset that Joe Milton and Gerard Mayo prevented me from getting one of those players, winning that irrelevant game at the end of the season up against the Buffalo Bills. If Hunter and Carter are off the board at 4, which I anticipate both of them being, I think you got to take Will Campbell. They need help in that offensive line. That offensive line was a disgrace last year. I wanted a star pass rusher or a star wide receiver. If they took Ted McMillan, I think 4 would be early, but I wouldn't hate it. But I don't think you could go wrong with Will Campbell, who may not be a left tackle in the NFL. I think he could definitely be. But there is a chance that you may have to move him to guard. If he ends up playing 10 years, though, in the NFL left guard, I'm more than fine with that. Remember, the Patriots used to have Joe Tooney, and then he ended up going to Kansas City. So if he ends up being a Joe Tooney, I'm good with that, even if he plays most of his career at guard. All righty. I did a disservice to the listening audience right before the break. I should have teased something. And what I would have teased would have been, when we come on back, I have what could be the worst take in the history of the network, and we'll play you that audio. So last night, I'm watching the Golden State Warriors-Rockets game, and I have an admission. I fell asleep during the game. Fell asleep on my couch, rolled over. It was like 1:50 in the morning or something like that. So I go, let me see who's on the network. Let's just see like what they're talking about. And I tune into the network, and it's our pal Ryan Hot Take Hickey on these airways, as he does 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern time on Sundays. I was a little like, didn't have my wits together and everything because of the fact I was just waking up and I was going to my bed. So I heard about 3 minutes of Hickey. I thought it was a dream because the take was so stupid. And I love Hickey, but it was a stupid take. This was Hot Take Hickey last night on the network after the fact that the Warriors defeated the Rockets in Houston. Listen up.
This is a hot take, but it's one that I'm not backing down on. CJ Stroud dapping up Steph Curry after the game, I think is a bad look. You can't be doing it. You are at the Rockets game representing the great city of Houston. I think the last thing you could be doing or should be doing right after the game on the court in front of everybody is dapping up and laughing with Steph Curry, a guy who just dropped 31 on you in the playoffs. CJ Stroud probably has his number. Could hit him up. Could spend a weekend with him. Go train with him. Go to dinner with him. Even if he doesn't have the number. Can you do this for the city of Houston? Can you go in the tunnel? Can you go in the privacy of the bowels of the arena, just so not everyone in the arena is watching you yuck it up with a guy that probably every single person there was cursing at 5 minutes ago? That's all I'm asking. Show some respect for the fans. Show some respect for the city. You are representing the city, not there to fanboy over Steph Curry.
There's some fake outrage there, if I'm just being honest. CJ Stroud is beloved in Houston. He has saved that Texans franchise. Is any fan losing their mind that after the game, CJ Stroud daps up Steph Curry, who's one of the top 10 greatest NBA players of all time, and he's the greatest shooter of all time? Like, come on. What are we doing there? Now, Nico, you were producing that, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
What were your thoughts when Hickey is giving that take in the moment?
Well, I told him that we have to wait and see if there's any more background. I don't know what CJ Stroud, what
it's
team
simple.
he roots for.
CJ Stroud
for all we know, he
saw
could have been a
Steph
Warriors
Curry.
fan.
Maybe, who knows? CJ Stroud saw Steph Curry. Steph Curry is very famous. Steph Curry is the greatest shooter of all time. CJ Stroud, when he was younger, probably watched Steph Curry and was mesmerized by him. CJ Stroud is now very famous. CJ Stroud gets good seats in Houston. CJ Stroud gets good seats anywhere. He sees someone, I'm an athlete. You're an all-time great athlete. Dap it up. Cool to meet you. CJ Stroud, in that moment, is fanboying. No problem with it whatsoever. I don't care if CJ Stroud is a diehard Rockets fan. I don't care if he grew up rooting for the Celtics. Does not matter to me. You play for the Texans. You don't play for the Rockets. I get it. Your fans are in Houston. All those other fans saying they wouldn't dap up Steph Curry for the pride of the Rockets, baloney. Bullcrap. All righty. We will end the show right there. That's in the running for dumb take of the year. We should do that. The dumbest take of the year. Samter, put it in the hopper. All righty. Chris Trapasso, thank you. Jason Avant, thank you. Nico, thank you. Ack, thank you. Samter, thank you. Each and every one of you listening to this fine radio program, we thank you. We will talk tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific time. Have a great Monday night, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.